Most people's minds are made of glass. One rejection, and they shatter. One failure, and they give up on their dreams forever. One criticism, and they spiral into weeks of self-doubt. But what if I told you that you could build mental armor so strong that nothing could break you? Not failure, not rejection, not criticism, not even years of struggle and setbacks. Today, you're going to learn the exact techniques used by Navy SEALs, elite athletes, and billionaire entrepreneurs to build minds that cannot be broken. By the time you finish this, you'll understand how to construct psychological defenses that are literally impenetrable. You'll become the kind of person who gets stronger under pressure while others crumble. This isn't theory. This isn't motivation. This is mental warfare training for your mind. And if you apply what you learned today, you will never be the same person again. Chapter 1: The Mental Warfare Crisis. Your mind is under attack right now. Every single day, forces beyond your control are trying to break you down, weaken your resolve, and turn you into another victim of circumstance. The stress of modern life, the constant negativity, the endless distractions, the fear-mongering media, toxic people who drain your energy, social media algorithms designed to make you feel inadequate, economic uncertainty that breeds anxiety, political polarization that creates division, technological disruption that makes everything feel unstable. They're all weapons in a war being waged against your mental strength. And here's the brutal truth. Most people are losing this war. They're walking around with minds made of glass, shattering at the first sign of real pressure. One rejection from a job interview, and they convince themselves they're unemployable. One failed relationship, and they decide they're unlovable. One business setback, and they abandon their entrepreneurial dreams. One harsh comment from a stranger online, and they question their entire self-worth. One unexpected bill, and they spiral into financial panic. One health scare, and they become paralyzed by mortality fears. These people have turned themselves into psychological casualties without even realizing it. They've surrendered control of their mental state to external circumstances. They've made their inner peace dependent on things they cannot control. They've programmed themselves to be victims of whatever life throws at them. But what if I told you that you could build mental armor so strong that nothing could penetrate it? What if you could develop a mind so unbreakable that challenges actually make you stronger? What if you could become the kind of person who thrives under pressure while others crumble? What if you could train your brain to see opportunity where others see only threat, growth where others see only pain, possibility where others see only limitation? This isn't motivational fluff or positive thinking nonsense. This is psychological warfare training for your mind. This is applied neuroscience. This is the systematic development of mental resilience using proven techniques that have been tested in the highest pressure situations imaginable. By the time you finish this comprehensive training, you'll understand exactly how to construct mental defenses that are literally impenetrable. You'll learn the same techniques used by Navy SEALs who perform life-or-death missions under extreme pressure, elite athletes who compete on the world's biggest stages, special forces operators who remain calm during combat, emergency room doctors who make critical decisions during chaos, astronauts who function effectively in the most hostile environment possible, billionaire entrepreneurs who build empires despite constant setbacks, and world-class performers who excel when everyone is watching. The difference between those who succeed at the highest levels and those who remain trapped in mediocrity isn't talent, luck, genetics, or circumstances. It's mental resilience. It's the ability to take hits and keep moving forward. It's having a mind that gets stronger with every challenge instead of weaker. It's developing psychological antibodies that make you immune to the mental viruses that infect most people. Most people think mental toughness is something you're born with. They believe some people are just naturally stronger, naturally more resilient, naturally better at handling pressure. This is a lie that keeps them weak. Mental toughness is a skill that can be developed. Mental armor is something that can be built systematically. And anyone can do it if they understand the right techniques and commit to the right training. The problem is, nobody teaches you this stuff in school. Educational systems don't include courses on mental resilience, emotional regulation, or psychological self-defense. Parents don't know how to build mental toughness in their children because they never learned it themselves. Society actually encourages mental weakness by promoting victim mentality, teaching people to avoid discomfort, encouraging them to seek safety at all costs, and telling them to express every feeling they have without any filter or self-control. Modern culture has created a generation of psychological weaklings who crumble at the first sign of adversity. They need safe spaces to protect them from ideas that might challenge their worldview. They require trigger warnings to avoid content that might cause mild discomfort. They demand participation trophies to protect their self-esteem from the reality of failure. They seek therapy for problems that previous generations solved through character development and personal responsibility. But the elite know better. They understand that mental strength is the foundation of all achievement. They know that without an unbreakable mind, everything else is worthless. You can have all the talent in the world, all the knowledge, all the opportunities, all the resources, all the connections, but if your mind breaks under pressure, you'll never reach your potential. You'll always be limited by your psychological fragility. The strongest people in history didn't achieve greatness despite their challenges. They achieved greatness because of their challenges. Every obstacle they faced, every setback they endured, every failure they experienced became raw material for building stronger mental armor. They understood that adversity is not the enemy of success. It's the creator of success. Consider the most successful people you admire. Every single one of them has faced rejection, criticism, failure, doubt, fear, uncertainty, financial pressure, personal attacks, health challenges, relationship problems, and periods of deep struggle. The difference is, they didn't let these experiences break them. Instead, they used them as training exercises that made their minds unbreakable. Today, that changes for you. Today, you start building mental armor that nothing can penetrate. Today, you begin the transformation from psychological victim to mental warrior. Today, you commit to developing the kind of mind that cannot be broken by anything life throws at you. Chapter 2. The Anatomy of Mental Weakness. Before you can build an unbreakable mind, you need to understand exactly how minds break. Most people's mental defenses are so weak that they're practically inviting attack. They've unknowingly programmed themselves for failure, and they don't even realize it. They've created psychological vulnerabilities that make them sitting ducks for every challenge, setback, and criticism they encounter. Understanding mental weakness isn't about judging or criticizing people who struggle. It's about identifying the specific patterns that create psychological fragility so you can systematically eliminate them from your own mental programming. It's about recognizing the enemy so you can defeat it decisively. The first fundamental weakness is emotional reactivity. Most people are controlled by their emotions instead of controlling them. They are like emotional pinballs, bouncing from one feeling to another based on whatever happens around them. Someone says something negative to them, and they immediately feel hurt, angry, or defensive. They encounter an obstacle, and they immediately feel frustrated or overwhelmed. They face uncertainty, and they immediately feel anxious or fearful. They receive criticism, and they immediately feel attacked or inadequate. This emotional reactivity is mental poison because it means you're not in control of your own mind. You're like a puppet being controlled by external circumstances. Every situation, every person, every unexpected event has the power to derail your emotional state and destroy your focus. Your inner peace becomes hostage to forces beyond your control. When you're emotionally reactive, you make decisions based on temporary feelings rather than long-term strategy. You say things you regret when you're angry. You avoid opportunities when you're afraid. You give up on goals when you're discouraged. You make impulsive choices when you're excited. Your entire life becomes a series of emotional reactions rather than conscious choices. The second weakness is catastrophic thinking. Most people's minds automatically jump to the worst-case scenario in any situation. They get laid off from their job, and they immediately imagine themselves homeless and destitute. They get rejected by someone they're attracted to, and they convince themselves they'll never find love. They fail at something important, and they conclude they're failures as human beings. They face a health scare, and they assume they're dying. They encounter financial difficulties, and they envision complete ruin. This pattern of thinking creates a mental environment where fear dominates everything. Instead of seeing challenges as opportunities to grow stronger, they see them as threats to their survival. Instead of approaching problems with confidence and creativity, they approach them with anxiety and desperation. Instead of focusing on solutions, they become obsessed with everything that could go wrong. Catastrophic thinking is particularly destructive because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you expect the worst, you unconsciously behave in ways that make the worst more likely. When you're convinced you'll fail, you don't put in maximum effort. When you're certain people will reject you, you act in ways that push them away. When you're sure something won't work, you don't fully commit to making it work. The third weakness is victim mentality. Most people blame their circumstances, their upbringing, their genetics, their bad luck, their toxic relationships, their unsupportive families, their discriminatory society, their unfair bosses, their economic disadvantages, or other people for their problems. They see themselves as powerless victims of forces beyond their control. This mentality is mental cancer because it destroys your sense of agency and responsibility. When you think like a victim, you stop looking for solutions and start looking for excuses. You stop taking action and start making complaints. You stop focusing on what you can control and start obsessing about what you can't control. You stop growing stronger and start growing weaker. Every setback confirms your belief that you're powerless, creating a downward spiral that's almost impossible to escape. Victim mentality is seductive because it provides immediate psychological relief. It's easier to blame external factors than to take responsibility for changing your situation. It's more comfortable to see yourself as powerless than to acknowledge that your choices have consequences. It's less threatening to believe that success is determined by luck than to admit that it's determined by effort and skill. But this temporary psychological relief comes at a devastating long-term cost. When you see yourself as a victim, you give away your power to create the life you want. You become dependent on external circumstances changing instead of taking responsibility for changing yourself. You wait for someone else to rescue you instead of developing the strength to rescue yourself. The fourth weakness is comfort addiction. Most people avoid discomfort at all costs. They stay in jobs they hate because leaving feels scary and uncertain. They avoid difficult conversations because confrontation feels uncomfortable and risky. They stick with familiar routines because change feels threatening and demanding. They refuse to challenge themselves because growth requires effort and temporary pain. They choose the known misery over the unknown possibility. They prefer the familiar prison to the uncertain freedom. They select the comfortable failure over the uncomfortable success. They pick the easy wrong over the difficult right. But here's what they don't understand. Comfort is the enemy of mental strength. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you're making your mind weaker. Every time you avoid a challenge, you're training yourself to be fragile. Every time you seek the easy path, you're programming yourself for failure when life gets hard. Every time you retreat to your comfort zone, you're shrinking your capacity to handle bigger challenges. Comfort addiction creates a vicious cycle where your tolerance for discomfort decreases over time. The more you avoid difficulty, the more difficult things become. The more you seek comfort, the more uncomfortable you become when comfort isn't available. The more you shelter yourself from challenge, the more challenging simple problems become. The fifth weakness is external validation dependency. Most people need constant approval, praise, recognition, and validation from others to feel good about themselves. Their self-worth depends entirely on what other people think of them. Their confidence rises and falls all based on external feedback. Their sense of value is determined by social media likes, professional recognition, romantic approval, family acceptance, peer admiration, and societal status. This makes them incredibly vulnerable because they've given control of their mental state to other people. One negative comment can destroy their confidence for days or weeks. One criticism can make them question everything they're doing. One rejection can convince them they're not good enough. One person's disapproval can derail their entire emotional stability. External validation dependency turns you into an approval-seeking machine rather than a goal-achieving machine. You make decisions based on what will make others happy rather than what will help you grow. You pursue paths that others expect rather than paths that align with your values and vision. You become so focused on managing other people's opinions that you lose touch with your own authentic desires and capabilities. The sixth weakness is perfectionist paralysis. Many people refuse to take action unless they can guarantee perfect results. They won't start a business unless they have a perfect plan. They won't pursue a relationship unless they're certain it will work out. They won't attempt a challenge unless they know they'll succeed. They won't share their ideas unless they're completely refined. They won't take risks unless they can eliminate all possibility of failure. This perfectionist thinking creates chronic procrastination and missed opportunities. While perfectionists are waiting for perfect conditions, perfect timing, perfect preparation, and perfect guarantees, opportunities pass them by. While they're obsessing over making everything perfect, others are taking action and learning from results. Perfectionism is often disguised as high standards, but it's actually a form of fear-based thinking. The perfectionist isn't trying to achieve excellence, they're trying to avoid criticism, failure, and rejection. They use the pursuit of perfection as an excuse to avoid the vulnerability that comes with putting themselves and their work into the world. The seventh weakness is learned helplessness. This occurs when people experience repeated setbacks and conclude that their actions don't matter. They've tried to change their situation multiple times and failed, so they stop trying altogether. They've attempted to achieve their goals and fallen short, so they lower their expectations. They've faced rejection and criticism, so they stop putting themselves out there. Learned helplessness is particularly insidious because it often develops gradually. Each failure chips away at their confidence. Each setback reduces their willingness to take risks. Each disappointment makes them more cautious and less ambitious. Eventually, they stop believing that their efforts can create meaningful change in their lives. This mental pattern is devastating because it becomes self-perpetuating. When you believe your actions don't matter, you stop taking effective action. When you stop taking effective action, your results confirm your belief that you're helpless. This creates a cycle of diminishing effort and diminishing results that can persist for years or even decades. The eighth weakness is instant gratification seeking. Most people want immediate results and become frustrated when progress is slower than expected. They start a fitness program and quit when they don't see results in 2 weeks. They begin learning a new skill and abandon it when they don't achieve competence quickly. They pursue a goal and give up when they encounter initial obstacles or delays. This need for instant gratification makes people vulnerable to quitting before they can experience the compound benefits of sustained effort. They never develop the patience and persistence required for significant achievement. They never experience the satisfaction of working through difficulties to achieve meaningful results. The instant gratification mindset also makes people susceptible to get-rich-quick schemes, miracle solutions, and easy fix promises. They're always looking for shortcuts that will allow them to bypass the effort and time required for real development. They become easy targets for anyone promising fast results with minimal effort. These 8 weaknesses create a mind that's vulnerable to attack from every direction. It's like having a fortress with walls made of paper, gates made of cardboard, and guards who run away at the first sign of trouble. The moment any real pressure is applied, everything collapses. But the good news is revolutionary. Every one of these weaknesses can be transformed into a strength. Every vulnerability can become an impenetrable defense. Every mental liability can become a psychological asset. And that transformation starts with understanding the science of mental resilience and the systematic process of building unbreakable mental armor. The people who achieve extraordinary results haven't eliminated these challenges from their lives. They've developed mental systems that make them immune to these psychological vulnerabilities. They've built minds that cannot be broken by emotional turbulence, catastrophic thinking, victim mentality, comfort addiction, validation dependency, perfectionist paralysis, learned helplessness, or instant gratification seeking. They've created psychological antibodies that protect them from the mental viruses that infect most people. They've developed mental immune systems that actually get stronger when exposed to psychological challenges. They've built minds that use adversity as fuel for growth, rather than allowing adversity to fuel defeat. Chapter 3: The Neuroscience of Unbreakable Minds. Your brain is not fixed. This is the most important thing you need to understand about building mental armor. For decades, scientists believed that adult brains couldn't change, that neural pathways were permanent, that you were stuck with whatever mental patterns you developed early in life. This was completely wrong, and understanding why changes everything about what's possible for your mental strength. The truth is revolutionary. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on your thoughts, actions, and experiences. This process is called neuroplasticity, and it's the foundation of building an unbreakable mind. Every time you think a thought, you strengthen certain neural pathways. Every time you respond to a situation in a particular way, you make that response more automatic in the future. Every time you practice a mental skill, you literally change the physical structure of your brain. This means that mental weakness isn't permanent, and mental strength isn't genetic. They're both the result of neural patterns that have been reinforced over time through repetition and practice. And just like you can build physical muscle through progressive training, you can build mental muscle through deliberate, neuroplasticity-based exercises. The implications are staggering. If your brain is constantly changing based on how you use it, then you have complete control over your mental strength, emotional resilience, stress tolerance, confidence levels, and psychological toughness. You're not a victim of your genetics, your upbringing, your past experiences, or your current circumstances. You're the architect of your own mind. But most people don't understand this, so they accidentally train their brains for weakness instead of strength. They repeatedly think negative thoughts, strengthening neural pathways that create pessimism and fear. They consistently respond to challenges with anxiety and avoidance, making those responses more automatic. They practice victim thinking, reinforcing neural patterns that make them feel powerless and helpless. The key is understanding which neural patterns create mental strength and which ones create mental weakness, then deliberately practicing the patterns that serve you while eliminating the patterns that sabotage you. When you face a challenge, your brain has 2 primary response systems it can activate: the fear system or the growth system. These systems are mutually exclusive. When one is active, the other is suppressed. Your mental strength depends on training your brain to default to the growth system instead of the fear system. The fear system is designed for survival in dangerous situations. When it's activated, your brain focuses on avoiding threats, minimizing risks, seeking safety, conserving energy, and escaping danger. This system served our ancestors well when they faced physical dangers like predators, natural disasters, and hostile tribes. But in modern life, it often works against us because most of our challenges aren't actually life-threatening. When the fear system dominates your thinking, you become risk-averse, pessimistic, reactive, defensive, and focused on avoiding failure rather than achieving success. You see challenges as threats instead of opportunities. You focus on what could go wrong instead of what could go right. You seek comfort and familiarity instead of growth and expansion. You make decisions based on avoiding pain rather than pursuing pleasure. The fear system also triggers a cascade of stress hormones that impair higher-level thinking functions. When you're in fear mode, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for strategic thinking, creative problem-solving, and emotional regulation, goes offline. Your amygdala, the primitive fear center, takes control and makes decisions based on fight, flight, or freeze responses. This is why people make terrible decisions when they're scared, angry, or overwhelmed. Their higher brain functions are literally suppressed in favor of primitive survival responses. They can't think clearly, solve problems creatively, or regulate their emotions effectively because their fear system has hijacked their neural resources. The growth system, on the other hand, is designed for adaptation, learning, and improvement. When it's activated, your brain focuses on exploring possibilities, solving problems, learning from experience, building capabilities, and expanding your comfort zone. You see challenges as opportunities to become stronger. You approach problems with curiosity instead of anxiety. You embrace discomfort as a sign that you're growing. When the growth system is active, your prefrontal cortex is fully online and operating at peak capacity. You can think strategically, solve problems creatively, regulate your emotions effectively, and make decisions based on long-term vision rather than short-term impulses. You can access your full cognitive resources and apply them to whatever challenge you're facing. The growth system also triggers the release of neurochemicals that enhance learning, memory, and performance. When you're in growth mode, your brain produces increased levels of dopamine, which enhances motivation and focus, serotonin, which stabilizes mood and promotes confidence, and BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which literally grows new neural connections and enhances learning capacity. The difference between people with unbreakable minds and those with fragile minds is simple. They've trained their brains to default to the growth system instead of the fear system. They've rewired their neural patterns to see strength where others see weakness, opportunity where others see threat, and growth where others see danger. This rewiring doesn't happen overnight, but it's completely achievable through specific training techniques based on neuroplasticity principles. The most powerful of these techniques is called cognitive reconditioning, and it's based on the principle that you can literally reprogram your brain by changing your thought patterns. Every thought you think creates a neural pathway. The first time you think a particular thought, it creates a weak neural connection. But every time you repeat that thought, the connection gets stronger. Think the same thought repeatedly, and it becomes an automatic neural pathway that fires without conscious effort. This is how both mental strength and mental weakness develop, through repetition and reinforcement. If you consistently think thoughts like, "I can't handle this," "This is too difficult," "I'm not good enough," "I always fail," "People don't like me," or "I'm unlucky," you're strengthening neural pathways that create mental weakness, learned helplessness, and psychological fragility. But if you consistently think thoughts like, "I can figure this out," "This challenge will make me stronger," "I have what it takes to succeed," "I learn from every setback," "I attract the right people," or "I create my own opportunities," you're strengthening neural pathways that create mental strength, personal empowerment, and psychological resilience. The process is simple in concept, but requires discipline in practice. You must become aware of your automatic thought patterns and deliberately replace weak thoughts with strong ones. You must catch yourself when you're thinking like a victim and consciously shift to thinking like a warrior. You must monitor your internal dialogue and ensure it's programming you for strength rather than weakness. This isn't positive thinking or self-help nonsense. This is applied neuroscience. You're literally changing the physical structure of your brain to create mental patterns that serve you instead of sabotage you. Brain imaging studies show that people who practice cognitive reconditioning develop measurable changes in brain structure within weeks of consistent practice. But cognitive reconditioning is just the beginning. To build truly unbreakable mental armor, you need to combine it with other scientifically proven techniques that target different aspects of neural rewiring. Visualization is another powerful neuroplasticity tool. When you vividly imagine yourself handling challenges successfully, your brain creates neural patterns as if you're actually experiencing the situation. This is why elite athletes spend hours mentally rehearsing their performance. They're literally programming their brains for success before the actual event occurs. The key to effective visualization is making it as detailed and realistic as possible. You don't just imagine the successful outcome. You imagine the entire process, including the challenges you'll face and how you'll overcome them. You visualize feeling the stress response activate and then channeling it into enhanced performance. You mentally rehearse staying calm, focused, and effective under pressure. Stress inoculation is another crucial neuroplasticity technique. Just like a vaccine works by exposing you to a weakened version of a pathogen to build immunity, stress inoculation works by exposing you to controlled challenges to build psychological immunity. Each time you voluntarily face a difficult situation and handle it successfully, you build neural patterns that increase your confidence and stress tolerance. The key is making the challenges progressive and manageable. You start with small stressors that activate your stress response without overwhelming your capacity to cope. As you build competence at handling smaller challenges, you gradually increase the difficulty level. This progressive approach builds stress immunity without creating traumatic experiences that could undermine your confidence. Mindfulness meditation is another powerful tool for brain rewiring. Regular meditation practice literally changes brain structure, increasing gray matter in areas associated with emotional regulation, attention control, and stress resilience, while decreasing activity in areas associated with anxiety and reactivity. The specific type of meditation matters less than the consistency of practice. Whether you practice focused attention meditation, open awareness meditation, loving kindness meditation, or body scan meditation, the key is regular practice that trains your brain to observe thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them. Physical exercise is also crucial for brain rewiring because it triggers the release of BDNF and other neurochemicals that enhance neuroplasticity. Regular cardiovascular exercise, strength training, and complex movement patterns all contribute to brain health and mental resilience. Exercise also provides natural stress inoculation by challenging your physical systems in controlled ways. Sleep optimization is essential because most brain rewiring occurs during sleep. Your brain consolidates new neural patterns, eliminates cellular waste products, and integrates new learning during deep sleep stages. Poor sleep quality can undermine all your efforts to build mental strength by preventing proper neural consolidation. Nutrition also plays a crucial role in brain rewiring. Your brain needs specific nutrients to build new neural connections and maintain optimal function. Omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants, B vitamins, magnesium, and protein are particularly important for neuroplasticity and mental resilience. Social connections influence brain structure as well. Positive, supportive relationships trigger the release of oxytocin and other neurochemicals that enhance neuroplasticity and stress resilience. Isolation and toxic relationships, on the other hand, increase stress hormones that impair brain function and mental health. The most powerful approach combines all these techniques into a comprehensive brain training program. You practice cognitive reconditioning to reprogram your thought patterns. You use visualization to mentally rehearse success scenarios. You engage in progressive stress inoculation to build psychological immunity. You meditate regularly to enhance emotional regulation. You exercise consistently to optimize brain chemistry. You prioritize sleep to consolidate neural changes. You eat foods that support brain health. You cultivate positive relationships that enhance resilience. This multifaceted approach creates compound effects that accelerate brain rewiring and mental armor development. Each technique reinforces and amplifies the others, creating exponential rather than linear improvement in mental strength. The timeline for significant brain changes varies depending on the intensity and consistency of your practice, but research shows that measurable changes can occur within 2 to 4 weeks of consistent training. Significant structural changes typically occur within 8 to 12 weeks. Life-changing transformations usually require 6 to 12 months of dedicated practice. The key is understanding that you're not just trying to feel better or think more positively. You're literally rebuilding your brain for unbreakable mental strength. You're creating new neural architecture that will serve you for the rest of your life. You're developing psychological capabilities that will compound over time and create exponential improvements in your resilience, confidence, and performance. Chapter 4. The 4 Pillars of Mental Armor. Mental armor isn't built from a single technique or strategy. It's constructed from 4 distinct but interconnected pillars, each targeting a different aspect of mental resilience. Master all 4, and your mind becomes virtually unbreakable. Neglect any one of them, and you create a vulnerability that can be exploited when pressure increases. Think of these pillars as the 4 walls of an impenetrable fortress. Each wall must be equally strong, or enemies will attack through the weakest point. Each pillar must be developed systematically, or your mental armor will have critical gaps that leave you exposed when you need protection most. The 4 pillars are emotional regulation, cognitive flexibility, stress immunity, and identity armor. Together, they create a comprehensive defense system that protects you from every form of psychological attack while simultaneously making you stronger through exposure to challenge. The first pillar, emotional regulation. This is your ability to maintain control over your emotional responses regardless of external circumstances. Most people are emotional slaves. They feel whatever their environment tells them to feel. But with proper emotional regulation, you become the master of your internal state. Emotional regulation doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. It means having conscious control over how you process and express emotions. When someone criticizes you, you don't automatically feel hurt or defensive. When you face a setback, you don't automatically feel discouraged or defeated. When uncertainty arises, you don't automatically feel anxious or overwhelmed. Instead, you pause. You observe the emotion without being controlled by it. You choose how to respond based on your goals and values, not on your immediate emotional impulses. This creates an unshakable inner stability that external forces cannot disrupt. The foundation of emotional regulation is understanding that emotions are information, not instructions. When you feel angry, that emotion is giving you information, perhaps that a boundary has been crossed or an injustice has occurred. But the emotion itself is not telling you that you must react with aggression or retaliation. When you feel fear, that emotion is giving you information, perhaps that you're entering unfamiliar territory or facing a significant challenge. But the emotion itself is not telling you that you must avoid the situation or retreat to safety. Most people make the mistake of treating emotions as commands they must obey. They feel angry, so they lash out. They feel afraid, so they avoid taking action. They feel sad, so they withdraw from opportunities. They feel excited, so they make impulsive decisions. This emotional reactivity gives control of their lives to external circumstances. True emotional regulation starts with creating space between feeling and response. This space is where your power lives. In this space, you can observe the emotion, understand its message, and choose your response based on wisdom rather than impulse. Advanced emotional regulation goes beyond just managing negative emotions. It includes the ability to generate positive emotional states at will. You can create confidence when you need to perform. You can access calm when you need to think clearly. You can generate enthusiasm when you need motivation. You can produce determination when you need persistence. This emotional mastery makes you incredibly powerful because your performance is no longer dependent on external circumstances or random emotional fluctuations. You can access the emotional states that support peak performance regardless of what's happening around you. The highest level of emotional regulation is emotional alchemy, the ability to transform negative emotions into positive ones. Instead of being weakened by anger, you transform it into determination. Instead of being paralyzed by fear, you transform it into excitement. Instead of being crushed by disappointment, you transform it into motivation for improvement. The second pillar, cognitive flexibility. This is your ability to adapt your thinking patterns based on changing circumstances. Most people have rigid mental models that break when reality doesn't match their expectations. But with cognitive flexibility, you can adjust your perspective to find opportunity in any situation. Cognitive flexibility means seeing multiple possibilities where others see only problems. It means finding creative solutions when conventional approaches fail. It means remaining optimistic about outcomes while being realistic about challenges. This mental agility allows you to navigate uncertainty with confidence instead of fear. The foundation of cognitive flexibility is perspective taking, the ability to look at any situation from multiple angles to find the most useful viewpoint. When you face a challenge, instead of automatically focusing on what's wrong or what you can't control, you train yourself to also look for what's right and what you can influence. Perspective taking doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending difficulties don't exist. It means expanding your mental toolkit so you can choose the perspective that best serves your goals. Sometimes the most useful perspective focuses on solutions rather than problems. Sometimes it focuses on long-term benefits rather than short-term costs. Sometimes it focuses on what you can learn rather than what you can lose. Advanced cognitive flexibility includes assumption questioning, regularly examining your beliefs and mental models to ensure they're still serving you. What if that impossible goal is actually achievable with a different approach? What if that failed strategy would work in different circumstances? What if that unrealistic vision is exactly what's needed to create breakthrough results? The highest level of cognitive flexibility is paradoxical thinking, the ability to hold apparently contradictory ideas simultaneously and extract value from both. You can be confident but humble, focused but flexible, persistent but adaptive, optimistic but realistic. This allows you to navigate complex situations that would confuse people who think in binary terms. The third pillar, stress immunity. This is your ability to perform at peak levels under high-pressure conditions. Most people's performance degrades when stress increases, but those with stress immunity actually perform better when the stakes are higher. Stress immunity is developed through controlled exposure to challenging situations. Just like a vaccine works by exposing you to a weakened version of a disease to build immunity, stress immunity is built by deliberately putting yourself in pressure situations to build mental calluses. The foundation of stress immunity is stress reframing, changing your interpretation of stress symptoms from threatening to empowering. Instead of seeing increased heart rate as a sign of anxiety, you see it as your body preparing for action. Instead of interpreting nervous energy as fear, you see it as excitement for the challenge ahead. This reframe is based on cutting-edge research showing that stress is only harmful when you believe it's harmful. When you view stress as helpful and empowering, it actually enhances your performance and improves your health. Your body responds to your interpretation, not just to the stressor itself. Advanced stress immunity includes stress utilization, the ability to channel stress energy into enhanced performance. Instead of trying to eliminate stress, you learn to use it as fuel for heightened focus, increased energy, and improved capabilities. You become someone who gets excited about high-pressure situations because you know they bring out your best performance. The highest level of stress immunity is stress-seeking, actively pursuing challenging situations because you understand they make you stronger. You no longer avoid pressure. You seek it out as an opportunity to demonstrate your capabilities and continue building your stress tolerance. The fourth pillar, identity armor. This is having an unshakable sense of self that doesn't depend on external validation or circumstances. Most people's self-concept is fragile because it's based on temporary things like achievements, relationships, or social status. But identity armor is built on permanent foundations that can't be taken away. When you have identity armor, criticism doesn't threaten your self-worth because you know who you are independent of what others think. Failure doesn't define you because your identity isn't based on your outcomes. Rejection doesn't devastate you because your value isn't determined by other people's approval. The foundation of identity armor is principle-based identity, defining yourself by your values and principles, rather than by your achievements or circumstances. You become someone who acts with integrity, regardless of consequences. Someone who tells the truth, regardless of convenience. Someone who treats others with respect, regardless of their status. When your identity is based on principles, external circumstances cannot threaten your sense of self. You might lose money, but you cannot lose your integrity. You might face setbacks, but you can't lose your character. You might be criticized, but you cannot lose your values. Advanced identity armor includes capability-based identity, seeing yourself as someone who can develop whatever skills are needed to achieve your goals. You become someone who figures things out, someone who finds solutions, someone who adapts and overcomes. This makes you incredibly resilient because you never see yourself as permanently stuck or helpless. The highest level of identity armor is legacy-based identity, seeing yourself as someone who is building something that will last beyond your lifetime. You make decisions based on long-term impact rather than short-term convenience. This gives you incredible strength during temporary setbacks because you're playing a longer game. How the four pillars work together. These four pillars don't work in isolation. They reinforce and strengthen each other. Emotional regulation supports cognitive flexibility by keeping you calm enough to think clearly. Cognitive flexibility enhances stress immunity by helping you reframe challenges as opportunities. Stress immunity strengthens identity armor by proving you can handle whatever life throws at you. Identity armor stabilizes emotional regulation by giving you an unshakable foundation. When all four pillars are fully developed, they create a synergistic effect that makes you far stronger than the sum of the individual components. You become someone who remains emotionally stable under pressure, thinks clearly when others panic, performs better when stakes are higher, and maintains unshakable confidence regardless of circumstances. This is the power of complete mental armor. Not just protection from psychological attacks, but transformation into someone who gets stronger through every challenge they face. Chapter 5. Emotional Regulation, Mastering Your Internal State. Your emotions are not random events that happen to you. They're responses that you can learn to control with surgical precision. The difference between emotional masters and emotional slaves is understanding that emotions are information, not instructions. They provide valuable data about your internal state and external circumstances, but they don't get to dictate your behavior or determine your responses. When you feel angry, that emotion is giving you information. Perhaps that a boundary has been crossed, an injustice has occurred, or someone has disrespected you. But the emotion itself is not telling you that you must react with aggression, retaliation, or verbal attack. When you feel fear, that emotion is giving you information. Perhaps that you're entering unfamiliar territory, facing a significant challenge, or encountering potential danger. But the emotion itself is not telling you that you must avoid the situation, retreat to safety, or abandon your goals. When you feel sad, that emotion is giving you information. Perhaps that you've experienced a loss, disappointed yourself or others, or encountered an outcome different from what you hoped. But the emotion itself is not telling you that you must withdraw from opportunities, isolate yourself from others, or give up on your aspirations. Most people make the fundamental mistake of treating emotions as commands they must obey without question. They feel angry, so they lash out at whoever is nearby. They feel afraid, so they avoid taking necessary action. They feel sad, so they withdraw from social connections and opportunities. They feel excited, so they make impulsive decisions without considering consequences. They feel anxious, so they procrastinate on important tasks. They feel guilty, so they sabotage their own success. This emotional reactivity gives control of their lives to external circumstances and internal fluctuations they don't understand. Their behavior becomes unpredictable. Their decisions become inconsistent, and their results become mediocre because they're not acting from conscious choice, but from unconscious emotional reaction. True emotional regulation starts with creating space between feeling and response. This space is where your power lives. In this space, you can observe the emotion without being overwhelmed by it, understand its message without being controlled by it, and choose your response based on wisdom, strategy, and long-term goals, rather than immediate impulse and temporary feeling. The stop method, creating space between stimulus and response. The first technique for emotional regulation is called the STOP method. When you notice an intense emotion arising, whether it's anger, fear, sadness, excitement, anxiety, or any other strong feeling, you immediately stop what you're doing, take a deep breath, and create a pause before responding. This interrupts the automatic emotional reaction and gives you access to conscious choice. The acronym STOP stands for S. Stop. Immediately cease whatever activity you're engaged in. Don't speak, don't act, don't make decisions. Just stop. T. Take a breath. Engage in deep, conscious breathing to activate your parasympathetic nervous system and create physiological calm. O. Observe. Notice what you're feeling, where you feel it in your body, what triggered it, and what story your mind is telling you about the situation. P. Proceed. Choose your response based on your values, goals, and long-term best interests, rather than your immediate emotional impulse. During this pause, you observe the emotion without judgment or resistance. You notice where you feel it in your body, perhaps tension in your shoulders when you're stressed, a knot in your stomach when you're anxious, heat in your face when you're angry, or heaviness in your chest when you're sad. You identify what triggered the emotional response, perhaps a specific comment someone made, an unexpected event that occurred, a memory that was activated, or a fear that was stimulated. You consider what information the emotion might be providing. Is this anger telling you that a boundary needs to be established? Is this fear warning you about a genuine risk that needs to be assessed? Is this sadness indicating that something important to you has been lost and needs to be grieved? Is this excitement revealing an opportunity that deserves consideration? But you don't automatically act on the emotion. You treat it like weather, something you're aware of and take into account, but not something that controls your behavior or determines your direction. You might acknowledge that you're feeling angry about an unfair situation, but you choose to respond with strategic communication rather than emotional reaction. You might recognize that you're feeling afraid about an uncertain outcome, but you choose to proceed with careful planning rather than anxious avoidance. Cognitive reframing, changing your interpretation. The second technique is cognitive reframing, consciously choosing how to interpret emotional triggers and challenging situations. When someone criticizes your work, instead of automatically interpreting it as a personal attack on your worth and competence, you can reframe it as feedback that might help you improve your skills and results. When you face a significant setback, instead of automatically interpreting it as evidence that you're failing and should give up, you can reframe it as valuable data about what doesn't work and guidance for adjusting your approach. When you encounter rejection, instead of automatically interpreting it as proof that you're not good enough and never will be, you can reframe it as redirection toward better opportunities that are more aligned with your strengths and goals. When you experience financial pressure, instead of automatically interpreting it as evidence that you're irresponsible and doomed to struggle, you can reframe it as motivation to develop better money management skills and create additional income streams. Reframing doesn't mean lying to yourself, denying reality, or pretending negative things are positive. It means choosing interpretations that empower you rather than weaken you, that motivate action rather than paralysis, that promote learning rather than defensiveness. It means looking for the aspect of any situation that can make you stronger, smarter, more capable, or more resilient. The key to effective reframing is asking better questions when challenging situations arise. Instead of asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" Ask, "What can I learn from this experience?" Instead of asking, "Why am I so unlucky?" Ask, "How can I use this situation to become stronger?" Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" Ask, "What skills do I need to develop to handle this better in the future?" These questions direct your brain toward solutions, opportunities, and growth, rather than toward problems, limitations, and victimhood. They activate your problem-solving capabilities rather than your self-pity mechanisms. They engage your creativity rather than your catastrophic thinking patterns. Emotional granularity, precision in emotional awareness. The third technique is emotional granularity, developing a sophisticated vocabulary and precise awareness of your emotional experiences. Most people have a very limited emotional vocabulary. They're either good or bad, happy or sad, confident or scared, motivated or lazy. But emotions are far more nuanced and complex than this, and the more precisely you can identify what you're feeling, the more control you have over your emotional responses. Instead of just feeling bad, you might recognize that you're feeling disappointed about a specific outcome, frustrated with a particular person's behavior, concerned about potential consequences, and overwhelmed by the number of decisions you need to make. This specificity allows you to address each emotional component appropriately rather than being overwhelmed by a vague sense of negativity. Instead of just feeling stressed, you might identify that you're feeling pressured by an approaching deadline, anxious about a presentation you need to give, excited about a new opportunity that's available, and uncertain about which direction to take your career. This granularity helps you respond to each element strategically rather than being paralyzed by general stress. Emotional granularity requires expanding your emotional vocabulary beyond basic terms. You might feel annoyed rather than angry, curious rather than confused, determined rather than motivated, cautious rather than afraid, or energized rather than excited. The more precisely you can name your emotional experience, the more options you have for responding appropriately. Advanced emotional granularity includes recognizing emotional blends, situations where you're experiencing multiple emotions simultaneously. You might feel excited about a new opportunity and anxious about whether you can succeed at it. You might feel grateful for someone's help and frustrated that you needed help in the first place. You might feel proud of your accomplishments and concerned about whether you can maintain your performance level. Understanding these emotional blends prevents you from being confused or overwhelmed by complex feelings. Instead of trying to figure out whether you feel good or bad about a situation, you can acknowledge the full spectrum of your emotional response and make decisions that honor all aspects of your experience. Physiological regulation, using your body to influence your mind. The fourth technique is physiological regulation, using your physical state to influence your emotional state. Your emotional state is directly connected to your physical state, and you can use this connection to create the emotional conditions that support peak performance and clear thinking. When you notice anxiety arising, you can immediately shift to deep, slow breathing to activate your parasympathetic nervous system and create a sense of calm and control. When you notice energy dropping due to discouragement or depression, you can change your posture, increase your movement, and engage in activities that generate positive neurochemicals, like endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin. When you notice tension building from stress or overwhelm, you can use progressive muscle relaxation techniques to release physical holding patterns that reinforce emotional patterns. When you notice mental fog from confusion or uncertainty, you can engage in cardiovascular exercise to increase blood flow to your brain and enhance cognitive function. Your breathing pattern has immediate and direct effects on your emotional state. Short, shallow, rapid breathing activates your sympathetic nervous system and creates feelings of anxiety, urgency, and stress. Long, deep, slow breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system and creates feelings of calm, control, and relaxation. Your posture also influences your emotional state through what researchers call embodied cognition. Standing or sitting with your chest open, shoulders back, and head up creates feelings of confidence, power, and optimism. Slouching with your chest collapsed, shoulders forward, and head down creates feelings of defeat, weakness, and pessimism. Your facial expressions affect your emotional state through feedback loops between your facial muscles and your brain. Smiling, even when you don't feel happy, triggers the release of mood-elevating neurochemicals. Frowning, scowling, or maintaining tense facial expressions reinforces negative emotional states. Your movement patterns influence your emotional state through their effects on neurochemistry and circulation. Vigorous physical activity releases endorphins, increases dopamine and serotonin levels, and improves blood flow to areas of the brain responsible for mood regulation. Slow, gentle movement like yoga or Tai Chi activates the relaxation response and promotes emotional balance. Emotional inoculation, building immunity through controlled exposure. The fifth technique is emotional inoculation, deliberately exposing yourself to controlled emotional challenges to build emotional resilience and immunity. Just like stress immunity, you can build emotional immunity by gradually exposing yourself to situations that activate emotional responses while maintaining your equilibrium and effectiveness. This might mean having difficult conversations you've been avoiding to build immunity to conflict and confrontation. It might mean putting yourself in situations where you might face criticism or rejection to build immunity to social judgment. It might mean taking on projects that stretch your comfort zone to build immunity to uncertainty and failure. It might mean practicing public speaking to build immunity to performance anxiety. It might mean negotiating for better terms in your personal and professional relationships to build immunity to potential conflict. It might mean sharing your ideas and creations publicly to build immunity to criticism and judgment. Each time you face an emotional challenge and maintain your emotional regulation, you build emotional muscle and expand your emotional comfort zone. You prove to yourself that you can handle difficult feelings without being overwhelmed by them. You develop confidence in your ability to navigate emotional turbulence while remaining focused on your goals and values. The key to effective emotional inoculation is making the challenges progressive and manageable. You start with emotional situations that activate your responses without overwhelming your capacity to cope. As you build competence at handling smaller emotional challenges, you gradually increase the difficulty level. This progressive approach builds emotional immunity without creating traumatic experiences that could undermine your confidence. Emotional alchemy, transforming negative emotions into positive ones. The sixth and most advanced technique is emotional alchemy, the ability to transform negative emotions into positive ones through conscious reinterpretation and energy redirection. Instead of being weakened by difficult emotions, you learn to transform them into fuel for enhanced performance and accelerated growth. Anger can be alchemically transformed into determination and focused energy for achieving your goals. Instead of letting anger make you reactive and destructive, you channel that emotional intensity into disciplined action toward meaningful objectives. You use the energy that anger provides while directing it constructively rather than destructively. Fear can be alchemically transformed into excitement and heightened awareness. Instead of letting fear paralyze you or make you avoid opportunities, you recognize that fear and excitement create identical physiological responses: increased heart rate, heightened alertness, enhanced energy. The only difference is your interpretation. By consciously reinterpreting fear as excitement, you transform a limiting emotion into an empowering one. Sadness can be alchemically transformed into gratitude and wisdom. Instead of letting sadness make you withdraw and isolate, you use it as an opportunity to appreciate what you've had, to connect more deeply with others who matter to you, and to gain perspective on what's truly important in life. Anxiety can be alchemically transformed into preparation and strategic thinking. Instead of letting anxiety make you avoid challenges or procrastinate on important tasks, you channel that emotional energy into thorough preparation, careful planning, and proactive problem solving. Frustration can be alchemically transformed into innovation and creative problem solving. Instead of letting frustration make you give up or settle for suboptimal solutions, you use it as motivation to find better approaches, develop new skills, or create innovative solutions to persistent problems. The key to emotional alchemy is recognizing that every emotion contains useful energy that can be redirected toward constructive purposes. No emotion is inherently negative or positive. It's how you interpret and channel the emotion that determines whether it serves you or sabotages you. Advanced emotional regulation, generating positive states at will. The ultimate goal of emotional regulation is not just managing negative emotions, but generating positive emotional states at will. This means being able to create confidence when you need to perform, access calm when you need to think clearly, generate enthusiasm when you need motivation, produce determination when you need persistence, and summon courage when you need to take risks. This advanced emotional regulation makes you incredibly powerful because your performance is no longer dependent on external circumstances, other people's behavior, or random emotional fluctuations. You can access the emotional states that support peak performance regardless of what's happening around you. Generating positive emotional states requires understanding the triggers and anchors that create those states naturally, then learning to activate those triggers consciously. Confidence might be triggered by remembering past successes, visualizing future achievements, adopting confident posture and breathing, or engaging in activities that demonstrate your competence. Calm might be triggered by deep breathing exercises, meditation practices, peaceful visualizations, or physical activities that promote relaxation. Enthusiasm might be triggered by connecting with your deeper purpose, visualizing the benefits of achieving your goals, or engaging with inspiring people and content. The key is developing a toolkit of reliable methods for accessing any emotional state you need, when you need it. This transforms you from someone who hopes they'll feel the right way at the right time to someone who can create the optimal emotional conditions for success in any situation. When you master emotional regulation at this level, you become emotionally anti-fragile. Challenges that would overwhelm others actually make you stronger. Situations that would destabilize others become opportunities for you to demonstrate your emotional mastery. You develop an inner calm and stability that cannot be shaken by external storms, while simultaneously maintaining access to the full spectrum of emotions that make life rich, meaningful, and powerful. Chapter 6. Cognitive Flexibility, the Art of Mental Adaptation. Your mind can be your greatest asset or your biggest limitation, and the difference comes down to one critical factor: flexibility. Rigid thinking patterns are mental traps that keep you stuck in outdated strategies, obsolete beliefs, and ineffective approaches long after they've stopped serving you. But cognitive flexibility turns your mind into a precision instrument that can adapt to any situation, find opportunity in any challenge, and create solutions where others see only problems. Most people think in binary terms that drastically limit their options and effectiveness. Something is either good or bad, right or wrong, possible or impossible, safe or dangerous, successful or failed. This black and white thinking might feel simpler and more certain, but it's actually a form of mental weakness that leaves you vulnerable when reality doesn't fit your predetermined categories. The world is complex, nuanced, and constantly changing. Success in any meaningful endeavor requires the ability to hold multiple perspectives simultaneously, to see opportunities where others see only obstacles, to find creative solutions when conventional approaches fail, and to adapt your strategies when circumstances change. This is the power of cognitive flexibility, the mental agility that separates those who thrive in uncertainty from those who are paralyzed by it. People with rigid thinking patterns become trapped by their own mental models. They have fixed beliefs about what's possible and what's not, what works and what doesn't, what they can do and what they can't. When reality contradicts these fixed beliefs, they either deny the reality or conclude that they're inadequate. They can't adapt because their mental frameworks won't allow them to see alternative possibilities. But people with cognitive flexibility understand that their mental models are tools, not truths. They hold their beliefs lightly, test them against results, and adjust them when evidence suggests a better approach. They see their thinking patterns as software that can be updated rather than hardware that can't be changed. This flexibility allows them to navigate uncertainty with confidence instead of fear, to find creative solutions when conventional approaches fail, to see opportunities that others miss, and to adapt their strategies when circumstances change. They understand that the map is not the territory, and they're always willing to update their maps when they discover new territory. The first aspect, perspective shifting. The foundation of cognitive flexibility is perspective shifting, the ability to deliberately look at any situation from multiple angles to find the most useful viewpoint. When you face a challenge, instead of automatically focusing on what's wrong, what you can't control, or what might go wrong, you train yourself to also look for what's right, what you can influence, and what opportunities might be hidden in the situation. Perspective shifting doesn't mean ignoring problems, denying difficulties, or pretending that challenges don't exist. It means expanding your mental toolkit so you can choose the perspective that best serves your goals and supports effective action. Sometimes, the most useful perspective focuses on solutions rather than problems. Sometimes it focuses on long-term benefits rather than short-term costs. Sometimes it focuses on what you can learn rather than what you might lose. Consider a business failure from multiple perspectives. From one perspective, it's a devastating setback that proves you're not cut out for entrepreneurship. From another perspective, it's valuable education that cost money, but provided knowledge you couldn't get any other way. From a third perspective, It's a necessary step in your development that will make you stronger and more capable for your next venture. All three perspectives are valid, but they lead to completely different emotional responses and behavioral choices. The first perspective creates discouragement and withdrawal. The second perspective creates learning and skill development. The third perspective creates resilience and determination. The same objective facts can lead to completely different subjective experiences depending on which perspective you choose. Advanced perspective shifting includes temporal perspective changes, looking at situations from different time horizons. A setback that seems devastating when viewed from a 1-week perspective might seem minor when viewed from a 1-year perspective, and completely insignificant when viewed from a 10-year perspective. A criticism that feels crushing when viewed in isolation might seem constructive when viewed as part of a pattern of feedback designed to help you improve. A rejection that feels personal when viewed through the lens of your current emotional state might seem strategic when viewed through the lens of finding the right fit for your goals and values. The key to effective perspective shifting is asking different questions about the same situation. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What can I learn from this experience?" Instead of asking, "What's wrong with this situation?" ask, "What opportunities does this situation create?" Instead of asking, "How can I avoid this in the future?" ask, "How can I use this to become stronger?" The second aspect, assumption questioning. Most of your mental limitations come from assumptions you've never examined. You assume certain things are impossible because you've never seen them done, or because someone told you they couldn't be done. You assume certain approaches won't work because they failed in the past or in different circumstances. You assume certain goals are unrealistic because they seem too big or because other people have told you they're unrealistic. Cognitive flexibility requires regularly questioning your assumptions and testing them against current reality rather than past experience or other people's opinions. What if that impossible goal is actually achievable with a different approach, better tools, or changed circumstances? What if that failed strategy would work in a different context, with different execution, or at a different time? What if that unrealistic vision is exactly what's needed to create breakthrough results that wouldn't be possible with more realistic goals? Most assumptions are inherited rather than examined. You absorb beliefs from your family, your education, your culture, your peer group, and your media consumption without consciously evaluating whether those beliefs serve your goals or limit your potential. These inherited assumptions become invisible mental barriers that constrain your thinking and limit your possibilities. Effective assumption questioning involves systematically examining your beliefs about what's possible, what's required for success, what causes failure, what you're capable of, what other people will accept, and what the world will support. You ask yourself, where did this belief come from? What evidence supports it? What evidence contradicts it? What would I try if I didn't believe this? What opportunities am I missing because of this assumption? This process often reveals that many of your limiting beliefs are based on outdated information, limited experience, or other people's fears, rather than objective reality. You discover that things you thought were impossible are actually just difficult. Things you thought were required are actually just preferred, and things you thought were permanent are actually just persistent. Advanced assumption questioning includes examining your assumptions about cause and effect relationships. You might assume that success requires certain credentials, connections, or advantages. You might assume that failure is caused by specific factors or indicates specific inadequacies. You might assume that certain outcomes are only possible under certain conditions. But many of these cause and effect assumptions are oversimplified or completely incorrect. Success can be achieved through multiple pathways. Failure can result from numerous factors, and outcomes can be influenced by variables you haven't considered. By questioning these assumptions, you discover new possibilities for achieving your goals and overcoming your challenges. The third aspect, pattern recognition and cross-domain transfer. Cognitive flexibility includes the ability to see connections and patterns that others miss, to take lessons from one domain and apply them to completely different areas, and to recognize when an old solution can solve a new problem or when a new approach is needed for an old challenge. This pattern recognition comes from actively seeking connections between seemingly unrelated concepts, experiences, and fields of knowledge. How might the strategies used by successful athletes apply to business challenges? How might the principles of martial arts apply to emotional regulation? How might the lessons from historical events apply to current decisions? How might the techniques used in one industry solve problems in a completely different industry? Many breakthrough innovations come from cross-domain transfer, taking ideas, strategies, or technologies from one field and applying them to solve problems in another field. Velcro was invented by observing how burr seeds stick to animal fur. The design of airplane wings was inspired by bird flight. Many business strategies are adapted from military tactics or sports strategies. By actively looking for patterns and connections across different domains, you develop a much larger toolkit for solving problems and achieving goals. You're not limited to the conventional approaches used in your field or industry. You can draw upon insights and strategies from completely different areas of human knowledge and experience. Advanced pattern recognition includes recognizing meta-patterns, underlying principles that apply across multiple domains. The principle of leverage applies in physics, finance, business, and personal development. The principle of feedback loops applies in biology, psychology, technology, and relationships. The principle of compound growth applies in investing, learning, fitness, and skill development. When you understand these meta-patterns, you can apply them in any context where they're relevant. You can use leverage principles to amplify your efforts in any area. You can use feedback loop principles to create continuous improvement in any system. You can use compound growth principles to create exponential results in any endeavor. The fourth aspect, scenario planning and contingency thinking. Instead of assuming things will go according to plan, cognitively flexible people prepare for multiple possibilities and develop contingency strategies for different scenarios. They ask themselves, what if this approach doesn't work as expected? What if circumstances change in ways we haven't anticipated? What if unexpected opportunities arise that we hadn't considered? What if the obstacles are bigger than we estimated? This isn't pessimistic thinking or paranoid planning. It's strategic thinking that prepares you to adapt quickly when reality diverges from your expectations. By considering multiple scenarios in advance, you're prepared to pivot, adjust, or completely change direction when necessary. You have backup plans, alternative strategies, and contingency options ready to implement. Scenario planning prevents you from being blindsided by unexpected developments and reduces the emotional shock that comes with plan failures. When you've already considered the possibility that your initial approach might not work, you're mentally prepared to try alternative approaches without feeling like you've failed or that your goal is impossible. Advanced scenario planning includes considering second-order and third-order effects, the consequences of consequences. If you take a particular action, what will happen? And then, what will happen as a result of that? And what will happen as a result of that? This deeper thinking helps you anticipate unintended consequences and prepare for ripple effects that others don't see coming. It also includes considering positive scenarios that might exceed your expectations. What if this approach works better than anticipated? What if you achieve your goals faster than expected? What if opportunities arise that are bigger than what you originally planned? Being prepared for positive surprises allows you to capitalize on them instead of being overwhelmed by unexpected success. The fifth aspect, learning orientation and growth mindset. Rigid thinkers see setbacks as evidence that they should give up or that their approach was fundamentally wrong. They take failures personally and interpret them as reflections of their inadequacy or proof that their goals are unrealistic. They see challenges as threats to be avoided rather than opportunities to be embraced. Flexible thinkers see setbacks as valuable data that can inform better strategies and improved approaches. They ask, what worked? What didn't work? What can we do differently next time? What did we learn that we didn't know before? What assumptions were revealed to be incorrect? What new possibilities did this experience reveal? This learning orientation transforms every experience into useful information. Success teaches you what to repeat and how to scale effective strategies. Failure teaches you what to avoid or modify and reveals weaknesses in your approach. Unexpected outcomes teach you about factors you hadn't considered and assumptions you hadn't questioned. Everything becomes grist for the mill of continuous improvement and strategic refinement. Instead of being discouraged by setbacks, you become energized by the opportunity to improve your approach. Instead of being paralyzed by uncertainty, you become excited by the possibility of discovering new strategies and capabilities. Advanced learning orientation includes meta-learning, learning how to learn more effectively. You don't just focus on learning specific skills or information. You also focus on improving your learning processes, developing better study methods, enhancing your memory and retention, and accelerating your skill acquisition. This meta-learning orientation makes you increasingly effective at adapting to new situations because you're not just accumulating knowledge and skills. You're improving your ability to acquire new knowledge and skills quickly when circumstances require it. The sixth aspect, comfort with paradox and nuance. The world is full of apparent contradictions that must be navigated rather than resolved. You must be confident, but humble, focused, but flexible, persistent, but adaptive, optimistic, but realistic, independent, but collaborative, decisive, but open-minded. Rigid thinkers get stuck trying to choose one side of these paradoxes, but flexible thinkers learn to hold both sides simultaneously. This comfort with paradox allows you to be internally consistent while externally adaptive. You can maintain core principles while adjusting tactical approaches. You can stay committed to long-term goals while remaining flexible about short-term methods. You can be firm in your values while being fluid in your strategies. It also allows you to navigate complex situations that don't have simple or clear answers. Many of life's most important decisions involve trade-offs between competing values, uncertain outcomes, and incomplete information. Flexible thinking helps you make good decisions in these ambiguous situations by considering multiple factors and holding space for complexity rather than forcing simplistic solutions. Advanced comfort with paradox includes embracing the paradox of control, understanding that you gain more control by accepting what you can't control and focusing intensively on what you can control. You become more powerful by acknowledging your limitations and more effective by concentrating your efforts where they can make a difference. Developing cognitive flexibility through practice. Cognitive flexibility, like any mental skill, improves through deliberate practice. You must actively seek out perspectives that challenge your existing views. You must regularly question your assumptions and test them against evidence. You must consciously look for patterns and connections across different domains. You must deliberately plan for multiple scenarios and prepare for various possibilities. Most importantly, you must embrace uncertainty as a natural part of life rather than something to be feared or avoided. Uncertainty is where opportunities hide. It's where innovation happens. It's where breakthroughs occur. It's where the biggest rewards await those brave enough to venture into unknown territory. When you become comfortable with uncertainty, your mind becomes free to explore possibilities that others can't even see. You develop the mental agility to dance with change rather than being destroyed by it. You become someone who thrives in chaos, while others are paralyzed by complexity. Chapter 7. Stress Immunity. thriving under pressure. Most people see stress as the enemy, something to be avoided, minimized, or eliminated at all costs. This is a fundamental misunderstanding that keeps them weak, unprepared, and vulnerable to life's inevitable challenges. Stress is not the enemy. It's a training partner that makes you stronger when you know how to work with it properly. The difference between stress that breaks you and stress that builds you is simple: preparation and perspective. When stress catches you off guard and you have no tools to handle it, it overwhelms your system and degrades your performance. But when you've trained for stress and you understand its mechanics, it becomes fuel that enhances your capabilities and unlocks higher levels of performance. Elite performers in every field: Navy SEALs, Olympic athletes, emergency room doctors, special forces operators, astronauts, professional pilots, crisis negotiators, trauma surgeons, and elite executives all share one characteristic: they perform better under pressure than in comfortable conditions. This isn't natural talent or genetic superiority. It's trained skill. They've deliberately exposed themselves to stress in controlled environments so they can thrive when it matters most. Consider what happens when the stakes are highest in any field. The best athletes set personal records during the most important competitions. The best soldiers perform their most heroic acts during the most dangerous missions. The best doctors make their most critical decisions during the most challenging emergencies. The best entrepreneurs create their biggest breakthroughs during the most difficult periods. This is the paradox of stress immunity. Those who have trained themselves to handle pressure don't just survive high-stress situations. They excel in them. They access levels of performance that are only available when stress is present. They use pressure as a catalyst for peak performance rather than allowing pressure to create peak anxiety. Understanding the true nature of stress. Stress immunity begins with understanding what stress actually is and why your body creates it. Stress is your body's adaptive response to demands that exceed your current resources or comfort level. When you face a challenge that requires more from you than you're currently giving, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, or social, your nervous system activates to provide additional energy, focus, and capability. The problem is, most people have been conditioned to interpret this activation as dangerous rather than empowering. They feel their heart rate increase and assume something is wrong. They notice their breathing change and think they're losing control. They feel adrenaline surge and believe they're in danger. They experience heightened alertness and interpret it as anxiety. But these physiological changes are actually your body preparing you for peak performance. Your heart rate increases to deliver more oxygen to your brain and muscles, enhancing your physical and mental capabilities. Your breathing changes to optimize oxygen intake and carbon dioxide removal, improving your energy and focus. Adrenaline is released to sharpen your attention and increase your energy, giving you access to heightened awareness and enhanced strength. This is your body's way of giving you superpowers when you need them most. The stress response is an incredible biological gift that allows you to transcend your normal limitations and access extraordinary capabilities. It's the same system that allows mothers to lift cars off their children, athletes to break world records under pressure, and soldiers to perform heroic acts during combat. The key insight is that stress is only harmful when you believe it's harmful. Cutting-edge research shows that your interpretation of stress symptoms determines their effects on your body and performance. When you view stress as threatening and try to avoid or suppress it, it creates negative health effects and performance degradation. But when you view stress as helpful and embrace it as a resource, it actually enhances your performance and improves your resilience. Your body responds to your interpretation, not just to the stressor itself. If you interpret increased heart rate as a sign that you're prepared for action, your cardiovascular system functions more efficiently. If you interpret heightened alertness as enhanced focus, your cognitive performance improves. If you interpret nervous energy as excitement for the challenge ahead, your emotional state supports peak performance rather than creating anxiety. The first step, stress reframing. The foundation of stress immunity is reframing your relationship with stress symptoms. Instead of seeing increased heart rate as a sign of anxiety, you learn to see it as your body preparing for action. Instead of interpreting nervous energy as fear, you learn to see it as excitement for the challenge ahead. Instead of viewing stress as a threat to be avoided, you learn to see it as a resource to be utilized. This reframe is not just psychological, it's physiological. When you change your interpretation of stress, you literally change how your body responds to stressful situations. Research shows that people who view stress as enhancing rather than debilitating show improved cardiovascular efficiency, better cognitive performance, and increased resilience during challenging situations. The reframe process involves consciously changing your internal dialogue when stress symptoms arise. Instead of thinking, "I'm nervous and might fail," you think, "I'm energized and ready to perform." Instead of thinking, "This pressure is overwhelming," you think, "This energy will help me excel." Instead of thinking, "I need to calm down," you think, "I need to channel this power effectively." You practice recognizing stress symptoms as signals that your body is preparing you for enhanced performance. When you feel your heart rate increase before an important presentation, you interpret it as your body ensuring optimal blood flow to your brain for peak cognitive function. When you feel adrenaline surge before a challenging conversation, you interpret it as your system providing the energy and focus needed for effective communication. This reframing process requires consistent practice because your default interpretations have been reinforced over years or decades. You must consciously interrupt old thought patterns and replace them with empowering interpretations until the new patterns become automatic. Advanced stress reframing includes anticipatory reframing, preparing your interpretation before stressful situations occur. Before important events, you mentally rehearse interpreting stress symptoms positively. You remind yourself that nervous energy means you're prepared, that increased alertness means you're focused, and that physical activation means you're ready for peak performance. The second step, controlled exposure training. Just like building physical fitness requires progressively increasing physical demands, building stress immunity requires progressively increasing psychological demands. You deliberately put yourself in challenging situations to build your stress response system and prove to yourself that you can handle pressure effectively. This controlled exposure must be systematic and progressive. You start with challenges that activate your stress response without overwhelming your capacity to cope. As you build competence at handling smaller stressors, you gradually increase the difficulty level. This progressive approach builds stress immunity without creating traumatic experiences that could undermine your confidence. Level 1 exposure might involve public speaking to small friendly groups, having conversations with strangers, trying new activities where you might not excel immediately, or taking on projects that stretch your current capabilities slightly beyond your comfort zone. Level 2 exposure might involve public speaking to larger or more critical audiences, having difficult conversations about important topics, competing in activities where your performance will be evaluated, or taking on significant responsibilities where others are counting on your success. Level 3 exposure might involve high-stakes presentations to important decision-makers, negotiating in situations where significant value is at stake, performing in front of experts who could criticize your work, or leading teams through challenging projects with tight deadlines and high expectations. Each exposure session follows a specific protocol. Before the challenge, you mentally prepare using stress reframing techniques and visualization exercises. You remind yourself that this is an opportunity to build strength rather than a threat to be feared. You set specific intentions for how you want to demonstrate your stress immunity during the challenge. During the challenge, you monitor your stress response and actively practice using it as fuel for enhanced performance, rather than allowing it to overwhelm you. You observe your physiological activation without resistance, interpret it as preparation for excellence, and channel that energy into focused action toward your objectives. After the challenge, regardless of the specific outcome, you conduct a thorough review of your stress management performance. You identify moments when you successfully used stress as fuel and acknowledge those victories. You also identify any moments when you could have managed your stress response more effectively and create specific plans for improvement. Each successful stress exposure builds evidence that you can handle pressure effectively. You expand your comfort zone incrementally. You increase your confidence in your ability to deal with challenging situations. Most importantly, you train your nervous system to remain stable and effective under increasingly difficult conditions. The third step, stress recovery protocols. High performers don't just know how to activate their stress response effectively, they also know how to deactivate it when it's no longer needed. They have specific techniques for returning their nervous system to baseline after high-pressure situations, preventing chronic stress accumulation, and ensuring optimal recovery between challenging events. Effective stress recovery involves both immediate post-stress protocols and longer-term recovery practices. Immediate protocols help you transition from high activation back to baseline quickly after stressful events. Longer-term practices ensure that you maintain optimal stress resilience over time. Immediate post-stress recovery might include deep breathing exercises that activate the parasympathetic nervous system, progressive muscle relaxation techniques that release physical tension, brief meditation or mindfulness practices that calm mental activity, or physical movement that metabolizes stress hormones and restores biochemical balance. The key to immediate recovery is having reliable techniques that you can implement quickly after stressful events. You don't want stress hormones and activation to persist longer than necessary, as this can lead to chronic stress accumulation and reduced performance in subsequent challenges. Medium-term recovery might include longer exercise sessions that provide comprehensive stress hormone metabolism, extended relaxation practices that restore nervous system balance, social activities that provide emotional support and perspective, or engaging in hobbies and activities that bring joy and fulfillment. Long-term recovery practices focus on maintaining optimal baseline stress resilience through lifestyle optimization. This includes regular cardiovascular exercise that improves your stress response capacity, strength training that builds physical resilience, consistent sleep schedules that allow for proper nervous system recovery, and nutrition practices that support stress hormone production and metabolism. It also includes relationship practices that provide emotional support during difficult times, spiritual or philosophical practices that maintain perspective on life's challenges, and regular periods of complete rest and rejuvenation that prevent burnout and maintain peak performance capacity. The fourth step, building stress reserves through lifestyle optimization. Your ability to handle acute stress is directly related to your baseline level of physical, mental, and emotional resources. When you're well rested, properly nourished, physically fit, emotionally stable, and socially supported, you have much more capacity to deal with additional demands and challenges. This means treating your health and lifestyle not as luxuries, but as the foundation of your stress immunity. Every aspect of your lifestyle either contributes to your stress resilience or detracts from it. Every choice you make either builds your capacity to handle challenges or reduces your ability to cope with pressure. Physical fitness is crucial for stress immunity because it improves your cardiovascular efficiency, enhances your stress hormone metabolism, increases your energy reserves, and builds confidence in your physical capabilities. Regular exercise also provides natural stress inoculation by challenging your body in controlled ways and proving that you can handle physical demands effectively. Sleep quality directly affects your stress resilience because most nervous system recovery and repair occurs during deep sleep stages. Poor sleep quality undermines your ability to handle stress by impairing cognitive function, reducing emotional regulation capacity, and preventing proper stress hormone metabolism. Nutrition plays a critical role in stress immunity because your body needs specific nutrients to produce stress hormones, maintain nervous system function, and recover from challenging events. Chronic nutritional deficiencies can significantly impair your stress response capacity and recovery ability. Hydration affects stress resilience because even mild dehydration can impair cognitive function, reduce physical performance, and increase stress hormone production. Maintaining optimal hydration supports peak performance under pressure and efficient recovery after stressful events. Social connections influence stress immunity because strong relationships provide emotional support during difficult times, offer different perspectives on challenging situations, and create safety nets that reduce the perceived threat of potential failures or setbacks. Financial stability contributes to stress resilience by reducing background anxiety about survival needs and providing resources for handling unexpected challenges. While you don't need to be wealthy to be stress immune, having basic financial security removes one significant source of chronic stress. Environmental factors also affect stress immunity. Living and working in chaotic, noisy, or toxic environments creates chronic low-level stress that reduces your capacity to handle acute challenges. Creating calm, organized, and supportive environments helps maintain optimal stress resilience. The fifth step: stress inoculation through visualization. You can build stress immunity not just through actual exposure to challenging situations, but through mental rehearsal of stressful scenarios. When you vividly imagine yourself successfully handling difficult situations, your brain creates neural patterns that prepare you for real-world stress and enhance your actual performance when pressure situations arise. Elite athletes use this technique extensively, spending hours mentally rehearsing their performance under pressure before important competitions. They visualize not just perfect performance, but realistic scenarios that include the stress, distractions, and unexpected challenges they're likely to face during actual competition. Navy SEALs and other Special Forces units use stress visualization to prepare for missions in hostile environments. They mentally rehearse scenarios where everything goes wrong, equipment fails, team members are injured, and they must adapt quickly under extreme pressure. This mental preparation helps them remain calm and effective when they encounter actual crisis situations. Emergency responders practice mentally walking through crisis scenarios before they occur, visualizing their responses to various types of emergencies, complications, and high-pressure situations. This mental rehearsal helps them react quickly and effectively when real emergencies occur. The key to effective stress visualization is making it as realistic as possible. You imagine not just the successful outcome, but the challenges, setbacks, and pressure you'll face along the way. You visualize feeling the stress response activate and then using it to enhance your performance rather than allowing it to overwhelm you. You mentally rehearse staying calm when others are panicking, thinking clearly when information is incomplete, making good decisions when time is limited, and maintaining effective performance when stakes are highest. You practice accessing the mental and emotional states that support peak performance under pressure. Advanced stress visualization includes rehearsing multiple scenarios and outcomes. You visualize handling situations where everything goes according to plan, situations where unexpected challenges arise, and situations where significant setbacks occur. This comprehensive mental preparation helps you remain adaptable and effective, regardless of how situations actually unfold. You also visualize the physiological aspects of stress response, mentally rehearsing feeling your heart rate increase and interpreting it as preparation for action, feeling adrenaline surge and channeling it into focused energy, and feeling nervous activation and using it as fuel for enhanced performance. The sixth step: developing stress mantras and internal dialogue. Elite performers develop specific internal phrases and self-talk patterns that help them interpret stress positively and maintain optimal performance mindset when pressure increases. These stress mantras become automatic responses that activate when challenging situations arise, instead of allowing their minds to default to anxiety-producing thoughts like, "I'm nervous," "I might fail," "This is too much pressure," or "I can't handle this." They have prepared empowering phrases that reframe stress situations positively. Effective stress mantras might include, "This energy is preparing me for peak performance," "I've trained for this moment," "Pressure creates diamonds," "This challenge will make me stronger," "I perform better under pressure," "I am exactly where I need to be," "This is my time to shine," or "I use stress as fuel for excellence." The key to effective stress mantras is making them personally meaningful and authentic. They should reflect your actual capabilities and training, rather than being generic positive affirmations. They should acknowledge the reality of the challenging situation while reframing it in ways that support effective action. Advanced practitioners develop situation-specific mantras for different types of stress. They might have specific phrases for performance anxiety, specific mantras for interpersonal conflict, specific self-talk for financial pressure, and specific internal dialogue for health challenges. They also develop mantras that help them maintain perspective during stressful situations. These might include phrases like, "This too shall pass," "I've handled worse than this," "This is temporary," "I'm building strength through this experience," or "This is preparing me for bigger challenges." The most powerful stress mantras combine acknowledgement of the challenge with confidence in your ability to handle it effectively. They don't minimize the difficulty of the situation, but they frame it as an opportunity to demonstrate and develop your capabilities rather than a threat to your well-being. The seventh step, advanced stress utilization techniques. The highest level of stress immunity involves not just handling stress effectively, but actively using stress as fuel for enhanced performance. Instead of trying to eliminate stress or return to baseline as quickly as possible, you learn to channel stress energy into heightened focus, increased motivation, and superior performance. This involves understanding the different types of stress energy and learning to utilize each type appropriately. Acute stress provides intense focus and energy that can be channeled into immediate performance enhancement. Chronic stress provides sustained motivation that can fuel long-term projects and persistent effort toward challenging goals. Physical stress energy can be channeled into enhanced physical performance, increased endurance, and heightened physical awareness. Mental stress energy can be directed into improved cognitive function, enhanced problem-solving ability, and increased creativity. Emotional stress energy can be transformed into powerful motivation, deeper empathy, and stronger connection with your values and purpose. Advanced stress utilization also involves timing stress exposure for optimal performance enhancement. You learn to activate stress response before important events to ensure peak performance, and you learn to maintain optimal stress levels during extended challenging periods without burning out or experiencing performance degradation. You develop the ability to modulate your stress response, increasing it when enhanced performance is needed and decreasing it when recovery is required. This gives you conscious control over one of your most powerful performance enhancement systems. The ultimate goal, anti-fragile stress response. The ultimate goal of stress immunity training is not just resilience, the ability to withstand stress without being damaged, but anti-fragility, the ability to become stronger through exposure to stress. When you achieve stress anti-fragility, challenges don't just fail to weaken you. They actually make you stronger, more capable, and more confident. This anti-fragile stress response creates a positive feedback loop where each challenge you successfully handle increases your capacity to handle even greater challenges. Your stress tolerance increases through exposure. Your confidence grows through demonstrated competence, Your performance improves through stress-enhanced focus and energy. People with anti-fragile stress responses actually seek out challenging situations because they understand that pressure creates growth, difficulty builds strength, and uncertainty creates opportunity. They don't avoid stress. They use it as a tool for continuous development and performance enhancement. When you achieve stress immunity at this level, you join an elite group of people who actually perform better when stakes are higher, who remain calm when others panic, who think clearly when others are confused, and who take effective action when others are paralyzed. You become someone others turn to when situations get difficult because they know you thrive under pressure. Most importantly, you gain access to levels of performance, creativity, and achievement that are only available when stress is present. You discover that your best work, your greatest insights, and your most significant accomplishments come not despite challenges, but because of them. Chapter 8. Identity Armor Becoming Unshakable at Your Core. Your identity is either your greatest source of strength or your biggest vulnerability. Most people have constructed their sense of self on foundations that can be shaken or destroyed by external circumstances, creating a psychological house of cards that collapses when real pressure is applied. But identity armor is built on bedrock that cannot be moved regardless of what happens around you. The problem with most people's identity is that it's dependent on temporary, external, and uncontrollable factors. They see themselves as successful when things are going well and as failures when things go poorly. They feel valuable when they're receiving praise and worthless when they're being criticized. They feel confident when they're winning and inadequate when they're losing. They define themselves by their job title, relationship status, financial situation, social media followers, physical appearance, or other people's opinions. This makes their entire sense of self hostage to circumstances beyond their control. Their self-worth becomes a roller coaster that goes up and down based on external events that they cannot predict or control. Their confidence fluctuates based on other people's moods, opinions, and behaviors. Their sense of purpose wavers based on temporary setbacks, unexpected changes, or external validation. When your identity is built on external foundations, you're constantly vulnerable to psychological attack. A job loss can destroy your sense of worth. A relationship ending can make you feel unlovable. A business failure can convince you that you're incompetent. A criticism can shatter your confidence. A rejection can make you question your value. A setback can make you doubt your capabilities. Identity armor protects you from this vulnerability by grounding your sense of self in permanent rather than temporary foundations, internal rather than external sources, and controllable rather than uncontrollable factors. It creates an unshakable core that remains stable regardless of external turbulence, other people's opinions, or changing circumstances. When you have true identity armor, your sense of worth doesn't depend on your achievements, possessions, or social status. Your confidence doesn't fluctuate based on other people's approval or disapproval. Your self-concept doesn't change based on temporary wins or losses. Your core identity remains solid while you adapt your strategies, improve your skills, and navigate changing circumstances. The first element, principle-based identity. The foundation of identity armor is defining yourself by your principles and values rather than by your achievements, possessions, or social status. You become someone who acts with integrity regardless of consequences, someone who tells the truth regardless of convenience, someone who treats others with respect regardless of their status, someone who keeps commitments regardless of difficulty. When your identity is based on principles, external circumstances cannot threaten your sense of self because your principles are internal and permanent. You might lose money, but the second element, growth-based identity. Instead of seeing yourself as fixed or static, you see yourself as constantly evolving and improving. You become someone who learns from every experience, Someone who grows stronger through challenges? Someone who views setbacks as opportunities for development? Someone who is always becoming a better version of yourself? This growth mindset makes you anti-fragile at the identity level. Failures don't threaten your self-concept because you see them as learning experiences that make you more capable. Criticism doesn't devastate you because you see it as feedback that helps you improve. Challenges don't overwhelm you because you see them as opportunities to develop new skills and capabilities. When your identity is based on growth rather than achievement, you can maintain confidence and self-worth even during periods of struggle or setback. Your sense of progress comes from learning and developing, rather than from reaching specific milestones or accomplishing particular goals. Your satisfaction comes from becoming rather than having. Growth-based identity requires embracing the beginner's mind, being willing to be bad at things initially in order to eventually become good at them. It means viewing incompetence as a temporary state rather than a permanent characteristic. It means seeing challenges as training rather than threats. This identity element also includes the understanding that your current capabilities don't define your future potential. You see yourself as someone who can develop whatever skills are needed to achieve your goals. You don't limit yourself based on your current knowledge, experience, or abilities because you know you can learn, grow, and develop. Advanced growth-based identity includes the concept of deliberate development, systematically working to improve specific aspects of your capabilities. You actively seek out challenges that will stretch your current abilities. You deliberately put yourself in situations where you'll need to learn and grow. You view your life as an ongoing development project rather than a fixed set of circumstances. This creates incredible resilience because you never see yourself as permanently stuck or limited. No matter what challenge you face, you maintain confidence in your ability to develop the capabilities needed to handle it. No matter what setback you encounter, you believe in your capacity to learn from it and become stronger. The third element, contribution-based identity. Instead of focusing primarily on what you can get from the world, you focus on what you can give to the world. You define yourself by the value you create, the problems you solve, the lives you improve, and the positive difference you make in other people's experiences. When your identity is based on contribution, you become less dependent on external validation because your worth comes from your impact rather than recognition. You become more resilient because your purpose is bigger than your personal comfort. You become more motivated because you're driven by service rather than self-interest. Contribution-based identity creates meaning that transcends personal circumstances. Even during difficult periods in your own life, you can maintain purpose and direction by focusing on how you can help others, solve problems, or create value. Your sense of worth doesn't depend on how well things are going for you personally, because it's tied to how much positive impact you're having. This element of identity armor requires identifying ways to contribute that align with your strengths, interests, and values. Your contribution might be through your professional work, volunteer activities, creative projects, mentoring relationships, or simply how you show up in daily interactions with others. The key is making contribution a central part of how you see yourself, rather than something you do occasionally when it's convenient. You become someone whose primary drive is to add value, solve problems, and improve situations for others. Advanced contribution-based identity includes the concept of legacy creation, building something that will continue to have positive impact long after you're gone. This might be through the people you mentor, the organizations you build, the creative works you produce, or the positive changes you create in your community. This legacy focus provides incredible strength during temporary setbacks because you're working on something bigger than your immediate circumstances. Your purpose extends beyond your current situation, giving you reason to persist through difficulties and maintain hope during challenging periods. The fourth element, capability-based identity. Instead of seeing yourself as limited by your current skills, knowledge, or circumstances, you see yourself as someone who can develop whatever capabilities are needed to achieve your goals. You become someone who figures things out, someone who finds solutions, someone who adapts and overcomes, someone who always finds a way. This element of identity armor makes you incredibly resilient because you never see yourself as permanently helpless or inadequate. You might not know how to handle a particular challenge yet, but you see yourself as someone who can learn. You might not have the resources you need currently, but you see yourself as someone who can acquire them. You might not be strong enough to handle something right now, but you see yourself as someone who can build the necessary strength. Capability-based identity requires developing what psychologists call self-efficacy, confidence in your ability to execute the actions needed to deal with prospective situations. This isn't generic self-confidence or positive thinking. It's specific confidence based on evidence of your ability to learn, adapt, and overcome challenges. This confidence is built through deliberately taking on challenges that stretch your current capabilities and proving to yourself that you can develop new skills when needed. Each time you successfully learn something new or overcome a difficulty you haven't faced before, you build evidence that supports your capability-based identity. Advanced capability-based identity includes understanding that most limitations are learned rather than inherent. You recognize that beliefs about what you can't do are often based on past experiences, social conditioning, or lack of proper training, rather than actual incapacity. You become willing to challenge assumptions about your limitations and test them through deliberate practice and skill development. This creates extraordinary resilience because you approach challenges with curiosity and confidence rather than fear and avoidance. Instead of asking, "Can I handle this?" you ask, "How can I develop the ability to handle this?" Instead of focusing on current limitations, you focus on future possibilities. The fifth element, legacy-based identity. Instead of focusing only on immediate gratification or short-term results, you see yourself as someone who is building something that will last beyond your lifetime. You become someone who makes decisions based on long-term impact rather than short-term convenience. Someone who is creating something meaningful that will continue to have positive effects long after you're gone. When your identity includes a legacy component, you become less affected by temporary setbacks because you're playing a longer game. You become more willing to make sacrifices in the present because you're investing in the future. You become more resilient because your perspective extends beyond current circumstances to encompass decades or generations. Legacy-based identity requires thinking beyond your personal lifespan and considering how your actions will affect future generations, your community, your industry, or humanity as a whole. This might involve building organizations that will outlast you, creating works that will inspire others, developing people who will carry on your values, or solving problems that will benefit many people over time. This long-term perspective provides incredible strength during difficult periods because temporary setbacks become insignificant when viewed against the backdrop of a lifetime of contribution. Financial pressures, relationship difficulties, health challenges, or professional setbacks become manageable when you maintain focus on the larger purpose you're serving. Advanced legacy-based identity includes the concept of compound impact, understanding that the positive effects of your actions multiply over time through the people you influence, the problems you solve, and the changes you create. This multiplication effect means that even small positive actions can have enormous long-term consequences. This understanding makes you incredibly patient and persistent because you know that meaningful change often takes years or decades to fully manifest. You're willing to work on projects and pursue goals that might not produce immediate results because you understand the power of compound impact over time. Building identity armor through consistent action. Identity armor cannot be built through thinking or feeling alone. It must be forged through consistent actions that align with your chosen identity. Every time you act in accordance with your principles, you strengthen that aspect of your identity. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you reinforce your identity as someone who develops through challenges. Every time you focus on contribution over consumption, you deepen your identity as someone who creates value. The process of building identity armor requires what psychologists call identity-congruent behavior, consistently acting in ways that support the identity you want to develop. If you want to see yourself as someone with integrity, you must act with integrity in small situations as well as large ones. If you want to see yourself as someone who grows through challenges, you must consistently choose growth-oriented responses to difficulties. This consistency between identity and behavior creates a positive feedback loop. Acting in accordance with your chosen identity reinforces that identity, which makes it easier to continue acting in accordance with it. Over time, these patterns become so deeply ingrained that they feel automatic and natural. Building identity armor also requires removing dependencies on external validation and learning to derive satisfaction from internal measures of success. You must develop the ability to maintain confidence even when others doubt you, to feel valuable even when you're not receiving recognition, and to stay motivated even when you're not getting external encouragement. This doesn't mean becoming isolated or indifferent to others' opinions. It means being selectively influenced by feedback that helps you grow while remaining unshaken by criticism that doesn't serve your development. It means caring about others' well-being while not allowing their opinions to determine your self-worth. Self-compassion and identity armor. Identity armor also requires developing what psychologists call self-compassion, the ability to treat yourself with kindness and understanding when you make mistakes, experience setbacks, or face challenges. Most people are their own worst critics, using internal dialogue that they would never use with a friend facing similar difficulties. This self-criticism weakens identity armor by making your sense of self dependent on perfect performance. When you're harsh and judgmental toward yourself for making mistakes, you create internal instability that undermines your resilience during challenging periods. Self-compassion means acknowledging mistakes without defining yourself by them. It means recognizing that failure is a normal part of growth rather than evidence of inadequacy. It means treating yourself with the same patience, encouragement, and support you would offer someone you care about who is facing similar challenges. This doesn't mean lowering your standards or making excuses for poor performance. It means maintaining high expectations for yourself while also maintaining emotional stability and self-support when you fall short of those expectations. It means learning from mistakes without allowing them to damage your core sense of worth. Advanced self-compassion includes understanding that your worth as a person is separate from your performance in any particular area. You can acknowledge that you performed poorly in a specific situation without concluding that you're a poor performer in general. You can recognize that you made a mistake without believing that you're a mistake. The ultimate result: unshakable core strength. When identity armor is fully developed, you become genuinely unshakable at your core. External circumstances can change dramatically, but your sense of self remains stable. Other people can criticize or praise you, but your self-worth doesn't fluctuate based on their opinions. You can face any challenge with confidence because you know that regardless of outcomes, your essential worth and capability remain intact. This unshakability isn't arrogance, stubbornness, or closed-mindedness. It's the deep security that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for, regardless of external circumstances. It's the quiet confidence that comes from building your identity on foundations that cannot be moved by other people, changing circumstances, or temporary setbacks. It's the inner peace that comes from being self-defined rather than other-defined, self-directed rather than other-directed, and self-motivated rather than other-motivated. You become someone who operates from internal guidance, rather than external pressure, from personal values rather than social expectations, and from long-term purpose rather than short-term emotions. When you achieve this level of identity armor, you discover that most of the things that used to threaten or upset you simply don't have power over you anymore. Criticism becomes information to consider rather than attacks to defend against. Rejection becomes redirection rather than personal invalidation. Failure becomes feedback rather than identity threat. You develop what researchers call secure attachment to yourself, a stable, positive, and realistic relationship with your own identity that provides strength during challenging times and maintains equilibrium during changing circumstances. This secure self-relationship becomes the foundation for everything else you build in life. Chapter 9. The Daily Forge: Systems that Build Unbreakable Minds. Mental armor isn't built in dramatic moments of crisis or through occasional bursts of motivated effort. It's forged through daily practices that systematically strengthen your psychological resilience, one deliberate action at a time. Just like physical fitness requires consistent training rather than sporadic, intense workouts, mental fitness requires deliberate daily disciplines that compound over time to create extraordinary results. Most people wait for motivation to strike before working on their mental strength. They read an inspiring book or watch a motivational video and feel energized for a few days, then gradually return to their old patterns as the emotional impact fades. They approach mental development the same way they approach physical fitness, with enthusiasm that quickly burns out when results aren't immediately visible. But elite performers understand that motivation is unreliable and temporary. It's systems that create lasting transformation. They don't depend on feeling inspired to work on their mental strength any more than professional athletes depend on feeling motivated to train. They have systematic approaches that produce consistent results, regardless of emotional fluctuations or external circumstances. The Daily Forge is a collection of specific practices designed to systematically build each pillar of mental armor through consistent, manageable actions that fit into your existing routine while producing profound results over time. These aren't time-consuming or complicated practices that require major lifestyle changes. They're simple, efficient exercises that can be integrated into any schedule while creating dramatic improvements in mental resilience, emotional regulation, stress immunity, and psychological toughness. The key to the Daily Forge is understanding that small, consistent actions compound exponentially over time. A 5-minute morning practice that seems insignificant today becomes a powerful mental conditioning system when practiced consistently for months. A simple evening reflection process that takes just a few minutes can transform your entire relationship with challenges and setbacks when maintained over time. The first system: morning mental conditioning. How you start your day determines the mental state you'll operate from for the next 16 hours. Most people begin their day by immediately checking their phone, flooding their mind with other people's priorities, problems, and perspectives before they've even fully awakened. This puts them in a reactive mental state from the moment they wake up, making them vulnerable to emotional reactivity, scattered focus, and psychological weakness throughout the day. Morning mental conditioning involves taking control of your mental state before external forces can influence it. The first 10 minutes after waking are when your brain is most programmable, when neural patterns for the day are being established, when your subconscious mind is most receptive to deliberate programming. This is your opportunity to consciously choose your mental operating system, rather than allowing it to be chosen by random external inputs. The process begins with intentional awakening rather than jarring, alarm-based awakening. When possible, you wake up naturally by maintaining consistent sleep schedules that allow for adequate rest. When alarms are necessary, you use gentle progression alarms that gradually increase in volume and brightness, rather than shocking you into consciousness. This prevents immediate stress response activation and allows you to begin the day in a calm, controlled state. Immediately upon waking, before checking any devices, consuming any media, or engaging with external information, you spend 5 to 10 minutes in deliberate mental preparation. This begins with 2 minutes of conscious breathing exercises designed to activate your parasympathetic nervous system and establish a foundation of calm alertness. The breathing technique is simple but powerful. Inhale slowly for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, exhale slowly for 6 counts, and pause for 2 counts before beginning the next cycle. This 4-4-6-2 pattern activates your relaxation response, optimizes oxygen delivery to your brain, and creates a state of calm focus that supports clear thinking and emotional regulation throughout the day. Following the breathing exercises, you engage in 3 to 5 minutes of visualization and intention setting. This involves mentally reviewing your goals and priorities for the day, visualizing yourself handling challenges with confidence and skill, and setting specific intentions for how you want to show up in various situations you'll encounter. The visualization process should be as detailed and realistic as possible. You don't just imagine everything going perfectly. You imagine realistic scenarios that include potential challenges, setbacks, and stressful situations. You visualize yourself responding to these situations with the mental armor techniques you've been developing, maintaining emotional regulation under pressure, thinking flexibly when plans change, using stress as fuel for enhanced performance, and drawing upon your identity armor to maintain confidence regardless of outcomes. You also set specific intentions for demonstrating mental strength throughout the day. These might include intentions to remain calm during a difficult meeting, to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively to criticism, to use a challenging project as an opportunity to build stress immunity, or to maintain your principles even if doing so creates social pressure. The morning conditioning concludes with 2 to 3 minutes of affirmational self-talk that reinforces your chosen identity and capabilities. This isn't generic positive thinking or wishful affirmations. It's specific reinforcement of the mental armor you've been building, delivered in your own voice with conviction and specificity. Effective morning affirmations might include statements like, "I am someone who remains calm under pressure and uses stress as fuel for peak performance. I am constantly growing stronger through every challenge I face. I make decisions based on my principles rather than other people's opinions. I see opportunities where others see problems. I am building something meaningful that will last beyond my lifetime." Or, "I have everything I need to handle whatever today brings." The key to effective morning conditioning is consistency rather than duration. It's better to do a 5-minute practice every day than a 30-minute practice once a week. The power comes from the daily repetition that gradually rewires your neural patterns and makes mental strength your default operating mode. The second system, stress inoculation training. Throughout your day, you deliberately seek out small challenges that activate your stress response in controlled ways. This isn't about creating unnecessary drama or difficulty in your life. It's about systematically expanding your comfort zone through manageable challenges that build psychological immunity to pressure while proving to yourself that you can handle increasingly difficult situations. Stress inoculation might involve having a difficult conversation you've been postponing, expressing a contrary opinion in a group setting, attempting a skill that you're not yet competent at, asking for something that you might be refused, or putting yourself in a situation where you might face criticism or judgment. It might involve calling someone you need to reach, but have been avoiding due to anxiety, applying for an opportunity you're not sure you're qualified for, sharing an idea that others might disagree with, setting a boundary with someone who might react negatively, or attempting a physical challenge that pushes your current limits. The key is choosing challenges that are difficult enough to activate your stress response and stretch your current comfort zone, but manageable enough that you can succeed with focused effort and the mental armor techniques you've been practicing. You want to create opportunities to practice using stress as fuel for enhanced performance, rather than overwhelming yourself with situations that might create trauma or undermine your confidence. Each stress inoculation exercise follows a specific protocol designed to maximize learning and confidence building. Before engaging the challenge, you spend 2 to 3 minutes mentally preparing using the stress reframing techniques you've learned. You remind yourself that this is an opportunity to build strength rather than a threat to be feared. You visualize feeling stress activation and channeling it into enhanced focus and performance. During the challenge, you monitor your stress response and actively practice the mental armor techniques you've been developing. You observe your physiological activation without resistance, interpret stress symptoms as preparation for peak performance, and channel that energy into focused action toward your objectives. You maintain awareness of your emotional state while preventing emotions from dictating your behavior. After the challenge, regardless of the specific outcome, you conduct a thorough review of your mental performance. You identify moments when you successfully demonstrated mental armor and acknowledge those victories, no matter how small they might seem. You also identify any moments when you could have applied your mental armor techniques more effectively and create specific plans for improvement in future situations. Each successful stress inoculation exercise builds evidence that you can handle pressure effectively and use challenges as opportunities for growth. You expand your comfort zone incrementally. You increase your confidence in your ability to deal with difficult situations. Most importantly, you train your nervous system to remain stable and effective under increasingly challenging conditions. The progression should be gradual, but consistent. You start with challenges that create mild stress activation and gradually work up to situations that create more significant pressure. This progressive approach builds stress immunity without creating overwhelming experiences that could undermine your confidence or create negative associations with challenge seeking. The third system, evening reflection and integration. Just as morning conditioning programs your mind for the day ahead, evening reflection integrates the lessons from the day and prepares your subconscious for continued growth during sleep. This practice ensures that every experience becomes a building block for stronger mental armor, rather than just random events that pass without contributing to your development. Evening reflection begins with reviewing the day's challenges and your responses to them. You spend 5 to 10 minutes systematically examining situations where you faced pressure, uncertainty, criticism, setbacks, or other challenges that activated your stress response or tested your mental armor. For each challenging situation, you identify specific moments when you demonstrated mental strength and acknowledge yourself for those victories. Maybe you remained calm during a stressful meeting, thought flexibly when plans changed unexpectedly, used criticism as information rather than taking it personally, or maintained your principles despite social pressure. These victories, no matter how small they might seem, represent evidence of your growing mental armor and should be explicitly acknowledged and celebrated. You also identify moments when you could have responded more effectively using the mental armor techniques you've been practicing. Maybe you reacted emotionally instead of maintaining regulation, thought rigidly instead of adapting flexibly, interpreted stress as threatening instead of empowering, or compromised your principles to avoid discomfort. These moments aren't failures to be criticized. They're learning opportunities to be analyzed and improved upon. The review process should be objective and constructive rather than judgmental or critical. You approach your performance with the same analytical mindset you would bring to reviewing a sports performance or business strategy. What worked well? What could be improved? What patterns are emerging? What adjustments would enhance future performance? Following the performance review, you engage in gratitude practice specifically focused on challenges that contributed to your growth. Instead of just appreciating positive experiences, you actively appreciate difficult experiences that helped you build mental strength. You might feel grateful for a criticism that helped you identify a blind spot, a setback that taught you resilience, a stressful situation that proved you could handle pressure, or a conflict that helped you practice emotional regulation. This gratitude practice trains your mind to see adversity as valuable rather than threatening. It reinforces the mental framework that challenges are opportunities for growth rather than threats to be avoided. Over time, this perspective shift makes you actually excited about difficulties because you understand they're making you stronger. The evening practice continues with extracting specific lessons from the day's experiences. What did you learn about your stress response patterns? What did you discover about your emotional triggers? What insights did you gain about your thinking patterns? What new strategies could you try in similar situations? What mental armor techniques proved most effective? These lessons should be recorded in a journal or digital notes system so you can track patterns over time and refer back to insights when facing similar challenges in the future. The act of writing down lessons also helps consolidate them in your memory and makes them more likely to influence your future behavior. The evening practice concludes with visualization of the next day's challenges and your ideal responses to them. You mentally rehearse handling anticipated difficult situations with confidence, skill, and mental armor. You visualize maintaining emotional regulation during stressful meetings, thinking flexibly when unexpected changes occur, using pressure situations as opportunities to demonstrate your capabilities, and staying true to your principles regardless of external pressures. This forward-looking visualization prepares your subconscious mind to support effective responses when challenging situations actually arise. It's like mental rehearsal for peak performance under pressure. The more vividly and specifically you can imagine handling challenges effectively, the more likely you are to respond effectively when those challenges occur. The fourth system, weekly comfort zone expansion. Each week, you deliberately engage in activities that stretch your current capabilities and expose you to new forms of challenge. This systematic expansion prevents your comfort zone from contracting and ensures continuous growth in your stress tolerance, adaptability, and confidence. Weekly expansion exercises are larger and more significant than daily stress inoculation exercises. While daily exercises might involve small challenges that take minutes or hours, weekly expansion might involve activities that take days or require significant preparation and commitment. Weekly comfort zone expansion might involve learning a new skill that requires you to be incompetent initially and build competence through practice. It might involve engaging in social situations that challenge your communication abilities and interpersonal confidence. It might involve taking on physical challenges that test your endurance, strength, or coordination. It might involve creative projects that require you to express yourself publicly and risk criticism or judgment. It might involve professional challenges like applying for stretch assignments, proposing new ideas that might be rejected, leading projects outside your current expertise, or speaking up in meetings where your opinion might be unpopular. It might involve personal challenges like having difficult conversations about important topics, setting boundaries with people who might react negatively, or pursuing opportunities that require vulnerability and risk. The specific activity matters less than the commitment to regular expansion and the willingness to stretch beyond your current comfort zone in meaningful ways. The key is choosing challenges that represent a significant but manageable stretch from your current capabilities, difficult enough to require growth, but achievable enough to build confidence through success. Each expansion exercise should be treated as a comprehensive training session for mental resilience. You prepare mentally beforehand using visualization and stress reframing techniques. You monitor your responses during the activity and practice applying your mental armor under real pressure. You extract lessons afterward and integrate them into your ongoing development. The weekly expansion should be progressive and systematic rather than random or overwhelming. You choose challenges that build upon your previous experiences and gradually increase in difficulty over time. This progression ensures continuous growth while maintaining confidence and motivation. You also vary the types of challenges to ensure comprehensive development. Some weeks might focus on physical challenges that build stress immunity and physical confidence. Other weeks might focus on social challenges that develop interpersonal resilience and communication skills. Still other weeks might focus on creative or intellectual challenges that enhance cognitive flexibility and creative problem-solving abilities. The fifth system, monthly mental audits. Once per month, you conduct a comprehensive review of your mental patterns, responses, and development progress. This is like a fitness assessment for your mind, a systematic evaluation of your current mental armor and identification of areas that need additional attention or different approaches. The monthly audit examines each pillar of your mental armor systematically. You review your emotional regulation capabilities by analyzing how you've handled various emotional challenges during the month. You assess your cognitive flexibility by examining how adaptable you've been when plans changed or unexpected situations arose. You evaluate your stress immunity by looking at your performance under pressure situations. You analyze your identity armor by examining whether your actions have been consistently aligned with your chosen principles and identity. For emotional regulation, you might ask, how quickly did I recover from emotional activation this month? How effectively did I use emotions as information rather than instructions? How well did I maintain emotional stability during interpersonal conflicts? What emotional triggers still create strong reactivity? What techniques were most effective for emotional regulation? For cognitive flexibility, you might ask, how well did I adapt when plans changed unexpectedly? How effectively did I find creative solutions to challenging problems? How readily did I consider multiple perspectives on difficult issues? What assumptions did I question and test this month? Where did rigid thinking limit my effectiveness? For stress immunity, you might ask, how well did I perform under high-pressure situations? How effectively did I use stress as fuel for enhanced performance? How quickly did I recover from stressful events? What stress management techniques were most effective? Where did stress still overwhelm my capabilities? For identity armor, you might ask, how consistently did my actions align with my stated principles? How well did I maintain confidence despite setbacks or criticism? How effectively did I focus on growth and contribution rather than external validation? Where did I compromise my values for short-term benefits? How stable was my sense of self during challenging periods? The audit also includes recalibrating your daily and weekly practices based on your current development needs and progress. If you've mastered certain types of challenges, you increase the difficulty level or add new dimensions to your training. If you're struggling in particular areas, you add targeted exercises or modify your approaches to strengthen those aspects of your mental armor. You might discover that your emotional regulation has improved significantly, but your cognitive flexibility needs more attention. You might find that your stress immunity is strong, but your identity armor needs reinforcement. You might realize that certain types of challenges still create disproportionate difficulty and require focused development. Based on these insights, you adjust your daily practices, modify your weekly challenges, and set specific development goals for the following month. This ensures that your mental armor development remains targeted, progressive, and responsive to your actual needs, rather than following a generic program that might not address your specific strengths and weaknesses. The monthly audit also includes celebrating progress and acknowledging growth that might not be immediately obvious in daily experience. Mental armor development often happens gradually, and significant progress can be easy to miss without systematic review. By explicitly acknowledging how much stronger you've become, you reinforce the positive identity changes and maintain motivation for continued development. The sixth system, quarterly intensive challenges. Every 3 months, you undertake a significant challenge that tests your mental armor comprehensively and pushes your capabilities to new levels. These intensive challenges are more substantial than weekly expansion exercises and designed to create breakthrough experiences that accelerate your development and prove your growing capabilities. Quarterly challenges might involve extended projects that require sustained effort over weeks or months, despite obstacles and setbacks. They might involve competitive situations where your performance will be evaluated publicly. They might involve leadership responsibilities where others are counting on your mental strength. They might involve creative endeavors that require vulnerability and risk of criticism. They might involve physical challenges that test your pain tolerance and determination, educational pursuits that stretch your intellectual capabilities, business ventures that require financial and social risk, or service projects that demand selfless contribution despite personal costs. The key characteristics of effective quarterly challenges are that they're significant enough to activate multiple aspects of your mental armor simultaneously, challenging enough to require growth beyond your current capabilities, and meaningful enough to create lasting impact on your confidence and development. These challenges should integrate all 4 pillars of mental armor, rather than focusing on just one aspect. An effective quarterly challenge will test your emotional regulation under sustained pressure, require cognitive flexibility as circumstances change, demand stress immunity for peak performance, and challenge your identity armor through potential criticism or failure. Quarterly challenges also provide opportunities to practice mental armor in real-world situations with genuine consequences rather than artificial training environments. The stakes are high enough to create authentic pressure, the duration is long enough to test sustained resilience, and the complexity is sufficient to require comprehensive application of your mental strength techniques. The preparation, execution, and integration of quarterly challenges should be treated as comprehensive mental armor assessments. You prepare extensively, using all your mental conditioning techniques. You monitor your performance throughout and document your responses to various challenges. You conduct thorough post-challenge analysis to extract maximum learning and plan for continued development. The power of systematic compound development. These systems work because they're based on the principle of compound development. Each individual practice might seem small in isolation, but combined and sustained over time, they create profound transformation that seems disproportionate to the effort invested. Just like compound interest in investing, compound development in mental training produces results that accelerate over time. The first month of practice creates modest improvements. The third month creates noticeable changes. The 6th month creates significant transformation. The first year creates personality-level changes that others comment on. Multiple years create character transformation that affects every aspect of your life. The key to success with these systems is consistency rather than intensity. It's better to do something small every day than something dramatic once in a while. It's the daily repetition that rewires your neural patterns and builds unshakable mental habits. Most importantly, these systems must be treated as non-negotiable commitments to yourself rather than optional activities that you do when you feel motivated or have extra time. They're the foundation practices that create the mental strength needed to achieve everything else you want in life. When you commit to these systems and maintain them consistently, you join an elite group of people who have systematically built psychological strength that most people never develop. You become someone who others admire for your mental toughness, emotional stability, and ability to thrive under pressure. You develop capabilities that serve you in every area of life and continue to compound for as long as you maintain your practice. Chapter 10. Battle Testing Your Mental Armor. Building mental armor through daily practices and systematic training is essential, but knowing that it actually works when you need it most requires deliberate testing under real pressure. Just like physical armor must be tested to ensure it can withstand actual attacks, mental armor must be battle-tested to prove its effectiveness under genuine stress and establish unshakable confidence in your psychological resilience. The difference between theoretical mental toughness and proven mental toughness is profound. When you know you've successfully handled real challenges, faced genuine pressure, and overcome actual obstacles, you approach new difficulties with authentic confidence rather than hoped-for bravery. When you've proven your armor works under fire, you don't fear battle. You welcome it as an opportunity to demonstrate your strength and continue building your capabilities. Most people avoid testing their mental strength because they're afraid of discovering that they're not as strong as they think they are. But this avoidance actually keeps them weak because untested strength is unreliable strength. You can never be confident in capabilities you haven't proven under pressure. Battle testing doesn't mean seeking out unnecessary conflict, creating artificial drama, or putting yourself in genuinely dangerous situations. It means systematically exposing yourself to progressively challenging situations that test different aspects of your mental armor, while building evidence of your capabilities under controlled but meaningful pressure. The goal is to create experiences that activate your stress response, challenge your emotional regulation, test your cognitive flexibility, and prove your identity armor under conditions that matter. These experiences should have genuine stakes, real consequences for success or failure, while remaining within bounds that ensure learning rather than trauma. Level 1. Controlled adversity challenges. The first level of battle testing involves deliberately chosen difficult situations that test your resilience in relatively safe environments where you maintain significant control over outcomes. The goal is to activate your stress response and challenge your mental armor while ensuring that success is achievable with the tools and techniques you've developed. Controlled adversity might involve signing up for a challenging physical event that pushes your endurance limits and tests your ability to persist through discomfort. It might involve taking on a public speaking engagement that tests your confidence under scrutiny and your ability to perform despite nervous activation. It might involve attempting to learn a complex skill publicly where others can observe your initial incompetence and gradual improvement. It might involve starting a creative project where you'll receive public feedback and potential criticism. It might involve applying for opportunities where you might face rejection. It might involve having difficult conversations about important topics where others might disagree with your perspectives. The key word is controlled. You're not throwing yourself into situations where failure is likely or consequences are devastating. You're choosing challenges that are difficult enough to truly test your capabilities, but manageable enough that success is achievable with focused effort and proper application of your mental armor techniques. These challenges should activate multiple aspects of your mental armor simultaneously. Public speaking, for example, tests emotional regulation under pressure, cognitive flexibility when unexpected questions arise, stress immunity for peak performance, and identity armor when facing potential criticism or judgment. Each controlled adversity challenge follows a comprehensive protocol designed to maximize learning and confidence building. Before the challenge, you spend significant time mentally preparing, using all the techniques you've learned. You visualize success scenarios, but also rehearse handling unexpected difficulties. You practice stress reframing and remind yourself that this is an opportunity to prove your growing strength rather than a threat to be feared. During the challenge, you monitor your mental state continuously and actively practice using stress as fuel for enhanced performance. You observe your emotional responses without being controlled by them. You apply cognitive flexibility when plans don't go as expected. You draw upon your identity armor to maintain confidence even when things get difficult. You treat the entire experience as a comprehensive training exercise for mental resilience. After the challenge, regardless of the specific outcome, you conduct thorough analysis of your mental armor performance. You identify moments when your training protected you effectively and acknowledge those victories explicitly. You also identify any weak points that were revealed and create specific plans for strengthening those areas through additional training. The key insight is that the specific outcome of the challenge is less important than how well you applied your mental armor during the process. A failed challenge, where you demonstrated excellent mental armor, is more valuable than a successful challenge, where you didn't test your psychological resilience. Level 2. Real-world pressure situations. The second level of battle testing involves naturally occurring, high-stakes situations that test your mental armor in actual circumstances, rather than artificially created ones. These are situations that arise naturally in your personal or professional life, where genuine consequences exist and multiple people might be affected by your performance. Real-world pressure situations might include important business presentations, where significant financial decisions will be based on your performance. They might involve crucial negotiations where substantial value is at stake. They might involve leadership responsibilities during organizational crises where your decisions affect other people's well-being. They might involve difficult relationship conversations where important connections hang in the balance. They might involve health scares that test your ability to remain calm and think clearly during medical uncertainty. They might involve financial pressures that challenge your stress immunity and problem-solving capabilities under genuine economic strain. They might involve career transitions that require confidence despite uncertainty. They might involve family crises that demand emotional regulation while supporting others. They might involve legal challenges that test your ability to maintain perspective and take effective action despite significant stress. The key to using real-world pressure as battle testing is approaching these situations with the right mindset. Instead of just trying to survive or get through them, you approach them as opportunities to demonstrate and strengthen your mental resilience. You see them as chances to prove that your mental armor works in actual battle conditions rather than just training environments. This mindset shift is crucial because it transforms unavoidable challenges from threats into training opportunities. Instead of feeling victimized by difficult circumstances, you feel empowered by the chance to show what you're capable of handling. Instead of hoping challenges will go away, you see them as valuable tests of your development and opportunities to build even stronger mental armor. During real-world pressure situations, you implement all the mental armor techniques you've been practicing while dealing with genuine consequences and authentic stakes. You use emotional regulation to maintain stability under pressure that matters. You apply cognitive flexibility to adapt when circumstances change in ways that affect real outcomes. You draw upon stress immunity to perform well under conditions where your results impact others. You rely on identity armor to maintain confidence regardless of how things unfold. These situations provide invaluable feedback about the effectiveness of your mental armor because the pressure is authentic rather than artificial. Your nervous system responds to real stakes differently than it responds to practice scenarios, giving you genuine data about your capabilities under actual stress. Level 3. Voluntary vulnerability challenges. The third level of battle testing involves situations where you deliberately expose yourself to potential criticism, rejection, or failure as a way of testing your emotional resilience and identity armor. The goal is to prove that your sense of self and emotional stability are not dependent on external approval, perfect outcomes, or others' opinions. Voluntary vulnerability might involve sharing your ideas, creations, or perspectives in situations where they might be criticized, rejected, or dismissed. It might involve attempting something important where failure is genuinely possible and would be visible to others. It might involve having honest conversations about difficult topics where others might disagree with you, think less of you, or respond negatively. It might involve applying for opportunities where you might be told you're not qualified. It might involve expressing your authentic opinions in social situations where they might be unpopular. It might involve creating and sharing artistic work that reflects your genuine expression rather than what you think others want to see. It might involve asking for what you want, even when you might be refused. It might involve setting boundaries with people who might react badly. It might involve standing up for your principles even when doing so might cost you social approval or create interpersonal tension. These challenges specifically test whether you've truly internalized the principles of mental armor or whether you're still dependent on external validation and perfect outcomes for your emotional stability. They reveal whether your confidence is genuinely based on internal foundations or still hostage to other people's opinions and reactions. Voluntary vulnerability challenges are particularly powerful because they directly challenge the fear that keeps most people psychologically weak: the fear of judgment, rejection, and criticism. By deliberately exposing yourself to these possibilities and proving you can handle them, you eliminate the power these fears have over your behavior and decisions. The key to effective vulnerability challenges is choosing situations that feel genuinely risky but aren't actually dangerous. You want to activate authentic vulnerability without putting yourself in situations that could cause genuine harm to your relationships, career, or well-being. These challenges also require careful attention to your motivation. You're not exposing yourself to potential criticism to prove you're tough or to impress others. You're doing it to test and strengthen your identity armor, while proving to yourself that your worth and confidence don't depend on others' approval. Level 4. Leadership under fire. The fourth level of battle testing involves taking responsibility in difficult situations and demonstrating mental strength, not just for yourself, but for others who are counting on you. Leadership situations amplify pressure because the stakes extend beyond your personal outcomes to include other people's well-being, success, and development. Leadership under fire might involve managing a team through an organizational crisis where people are looking to you for direction and stability. It might involve taking responsibility for a project that's behind schedule and over budget while maintaining team morale and finding solutions. It might involve being the person others turn to when systems fail, plans collapse, or unexpected emergencies arise. It might involve leading a group through a difficult decision-making process where different stakeholders have conflicting interests and emotions are running high. It might involve representing your organization, team, or community during challenging negotiations or public scrutiny. It might involve making difficult decisions that affect others' lives when information is incomplete and time is limited. It might involve providing emotional support and practical guidance to others during their personal crises while maintaining your own stability. It might involve standing up for what's right when doing so requires confronting authority figures or challenging popular opinion. It might involve taking responsibility for failures or mistakes that affect multiple people. The highest level of leadership under fire involves remaining calm and effective when others are panicking, making difficult decisions when information is incomplete, and taking responsibility for outcomes even when circumstances are largely beyond your control. This level of challenge reveals whether your mental armor is strong enough to protect not just yourself, but those who depend on you. Leadership challenges test all four pillars of mental armor simultaneously under maximum pressure. You must maintain emotional regulation while others are becoming reactive. You must demonstrate cognitive flexibility while helping others adapt to changing circumstances. You must exhibit stress immunity while performing for multiple stakeholders. You must draw upon identity armor while making decisions that affect others' well-being. These situations also test your ability to project strength and stability while experiencing internal pressure. Leadership often requires maintaining composure and confidence publicly while dealing with significant stress privately. This dual requirement, managing your own mental state while supporting others, creates unique challenges that reveal advanced levels of mental armor development. Level 5. Extended endurance challenges. The fifth level of battle testing involves long-term difficult situations that test whether your mental armor can sustain you through prolonged adversity rather than just acute stress. Short-term challenges test your ability to handle immediate pressure, but extended challenges test whether your resilience can be maintained over weeks, months, or even years. Extended endurance challenges might involve pursuing a long-term goal that requires sustained effort despite repeated setbacks and criticism. It might involve dealing with ongoing health issues that require persistent management and adaptation. It might involve maintaining performance standards during prolonged difficult circumstances like economic hardship, relationship problems, or career challenges. It might involve caring for family members through extended illness or difficulty while maintaining your own well-being and responsibilities. It might involve building a business or creative project over years, despite financial uncertainty and market challenges. It might involve pursuing education or training that requires sustained effort, despite competing priorities and obstacles. It might involve advocating for important causes despite ongoing opposition and slow progress. It might involve maintaining professional excellence during organizational instability or industry disruption. It might involve rebuilding after significant losses or setbacks that require months or years of sustained effort. These challenges test whether your mental armor includes the sustainability needed for long-term resilience. They reveal whether your mental strength is just a temporary state you can access in crisis or a permanent characteristic that can be maintained regardless of how long challenges persist. Extended challenges also test your ability to maintain hope, motivation, and effectiveness. When progress is slow, setbacks are frequent, and outcomes remain uncertain for extended periods, they require mental armor that includes patience, persistence, and the ability to find meaning and motivation in the process rather than just the outcomes. The key to extended endurance challenges is maintaining your daily mental armor practices even when, especially when, circumstances are difficult. These practices become your psychological lifeline during extended difficult periods, providing stability and strength when external circumstances offer little support. Level 6. Comprehensive stress testing. The highest level of battle testing involves situations that challenge every aspect of your mental armor, simultaneously under maximum pressure with genuine consequences. These are comprehensive tests that reveal whether your mental armor is truly integrated and unbreakable or whether vulnerabilities remain under extreme conditions. Comprehensive stress testing might involve starting a significant business venture that requires financial risk, public exposure, leadership responsibility, and sustained effort despite uncertainty. It might involve relocating to a completely different environment where you must rebuild social connections, adapt to new systems, and prove yourself in unfamiliar circumstances. It might involve taking on roles that require public performance under scrutiny while managing complex responsibilities and high expectations. It might involve pursuing ambitious goals that require years of effort with no guarantee of success while facing ongoing criticism and setbacks. It might involve crisis management situations where multiple problems must be solved simultaneously under time pressure while others are counting on your effectiveness. It might involve recovery from significant losses or setbacks that require rebuilding multiple aspects of your life while maintaining forward momentum. These comprehensive tests reveal whether your mental armor has become truly integrated, whether emotional regulation, cognitive flexibility, stress immunity, and identity armor work together seamlessly under maximum pressure. They show whether your mental strength has become a stable characteristic that you can rely on regardless of circumstances. The goal isn't to seek out unnecessarily difficult situations, but to recognize when life presents comprehensive challenges and approach them as opportunities to prove and strengthen your complete mental armor system. These experiences become defining moments that establish unshakable confidence in your psychological capabilities. The transformation through battle testing. As you progress through these levels of battle testing, you develop what military personnel call stress inoculation. Deep, experiential knowledge that you can handle whatever comes your way. This isn't theoretical confidence based on hope or positive thinking. It's proven confidence based on demonstrated capability under actual pressure. This proven confidence creates a feedback loop that makes you even stronger. When you know you can handle challenges, you approach them with the relaxed alertness of someone who has trained for this moment, rather than the desperate anxiety of someone who hopes they'll survive it. This relaxed alertness actually enhances your performance, making success more likely and further reinforcing your confidence. The process of battle testing also reveals that most challenges are far less threatening than they initially appear. When you've successfully handled truly difficult situations, everyday problems become merely interesting puzzles to solve rather than threats to your well-being. Your perspective on what constitutes a real problem shifts dramatically. You develop what researchers call challenge appraisal, the automatic tendency to see difficult situations as opportunities for growth and demonstration of capability rather than threats to be avoided. This shift in perception eliminates much of the anxiety and stress that people feel when facing difficulties, because threats feel dangerous while opportunities feel exciting. Most importantly, battle testing proves that your mental armor isn't just a collection of techniques you've learned, but a fundamental transformation in who you are. You discover that you've become someone who actually gets stronger through adversity, who performs better under pressure, who finds opportunity in chaos, and who leads others through their difficulties. This transformation is permanent because it's based on proven experience rather than temporary motivation. Once you know you're mentally unbreakable, that knowledge becomes part of your identity in a way that cannot be taken away by future challenges or changing circumstances. Chapter 11. The Unbreakable Life. Living from Mental Armor. When mental armor becomes fully integrated into your being, it doesn't just protect you from external threats. It fundamentally transforms how you experience life itself. You don't just survive challenges. You actively seek them as opportunities for growth and demonstration of your capabilities. You don't just endure difficulties. You use them as stepping stones to even greater strength and wisdom. You don't just cope with uncertainty. You thrive in it because you understand that uncertainty is where the greatest opportunities hide. Living from mental armor means operating from a fundamentally different paradigm than most people. Where others see threats, you see opportunities. Where others see problems, you see puzzles to solve. Where others see limitations, you see challenges to overcome. Where others see reasons to quit, you see reasons to adapt your strategy. This isn't naive optimism or delusional thinking. It's the natural result of having proven to yourself repeatedly that you can handle whatever life presents. When you live from mental armor, your entire relationship with reality changes. Uncertainty becomes exciting rather than threatening because you know you can adapt to whatever unfolds. Criticism becomes valuable information rather than personal attack because your identity isn't dependent on others' approval. Failure becomes useful feedback rather than evidence of inadequacy because your self-worth isn't tied to perfect outcomes. Rejection becomes redirection toward better opportunities rather than proof of your unworthiness. This transformation affects every aspect of your life: your relationships, your career, your health, your finances, your personal growth, and your contribution to the world. You become someone who creates opportunities rather than waiting for them, who solves problems rather than complaining about them, who leads others through difficulties rather than adding to the chaos. The first transformation: your relationship with uncertainty. Most people crave predictability and feel anxious when they can't control outcomes. They want to know exactly how things will unfold before they commit to action. They seek guarantees, demand certainty, and avoid situations where outcomes are unclear. This need for predictability severely limits their possibilities because most significant opportunities involve substantial uncertainty. But when you have unbreakable mental armor, uncertainty becomes exciting rather than threatening. You understand that uncertainty is where opportunities hide, where breakthroughs happen, where the biggest rewards await those brave enough to venture into unknown territory. You realize that if outcomes were guaranteed, there would be no opportunity for exceptional results because everyone would pursue the same guaranteed paths. This comfort with uncertainty allows you to take calculated risks that others avoid. You can pursue ambitious goals without needing guarantees of success because you know you'll learn valuable lessons and build capabilities regardless of specific outcomes. You can make bold moves without needing to know exactly how everything will work out because you trust your ability to adapt and find solutions as circumstances unfold. You develop what entrepreneurs call intelligent ignorance, the ability to act decisively even when you don't have complete information. You understand that waiting for complete certainty often means missing opportunities entirely, and that most important decisions must be made with incomplete data. Your mental armor gives you confidence to proceed despite uncertainty, because you know you can handle whatever challenges arise. This relationship with uncertainty also makes you incredibly valuable in organizational and social contexts, because most people become paralyzed when facing unclear situations. You become someone others turn to when circumstances are changing rapidly, when conventional approaches aren't working, and when leadership is needed despite uncertain outcomes. The second transformation, your relationship with failure. Most people see failure as evidence of inadequacy, proof that they're not capable of achieving their goals, or confirmation that they should lower their expectations and pursue safer alternatives. They take failure personally, interpret it as a reflection of their worth, and allow it to undermine their confidence for future endeavors. But when you live from mental armor, failure becomes valuable feedback that accelerates your learning and improvement. You understand that failure is not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone to success. Every failure provides information about what doesn't work, reveals assumptions that need to be questioned, and identifies skills that need to be developed. This reframe allows you to experiment boldly and iterate quickly. You can try new approaches without being paralyzed by the fear of not getting it right immediately. You can pursue stretch goals without needing to know you'll achieve them on the first attempt. You can take risks and make bold moves because you know that even failed attempts will provide valuable learning and capability development. You develop what researchers call intelligent failure, the ability to fail fast, learn quickly, and adjust your approach based on results. You understand that the faster you can test ideas and get feedback, the faster you can converge on approaches that work. Your mental armor protects you from being devastated by setbacks while ensuring that you extract maximum learning from every experience. This relationship with failure also makes you much more innovative and creative because you're not constrained by the need to be right the first time. You can explore unconventional approaches, test unusual ideas, and experiment with solutions that others wouldn't consider because they're afraid of failing publicly. The third transformation, your relationship with criticism and rejection. Most people take criticism personally and feel devastated by rejection because their self-worth is tied to external approval and validation. They make their confidence dependent on other people's opinions, which makes them incredibly vulnerable to emotional manipulation and psychological attack. But when you have identity armor, criticism becomes useful information that can help you improve, and rejection becomes redirection toward better opportunities that are more aligned with your strengths and goals. Your sense of worth isn't dependent on others' approval, so their disapproval can't threaten your core stability. This emotional independence allows you to seek feedback actively rather than avoiding it defensively. You can put your ideas and creations into the world without needing universal approval, because you understand that criticism often provides more valuable information than praise. You can pursue opportunities aggressively without being crushed when some don't work out because you know that rejection often leads to better alternatives. You develop what psychologists call rejection resilience, the ability to bounce back quickly from setbacks and maintain motivation despite temporary defeats. You understand that rejection is often about fit rather than worth, timing rather than capability, or circumstances rather than character. This transformation makes you incredibly powerful in professional and personal contexts because you can take risks that others avoid due to fear of judgment. You can express your authentic opinions, share your genuine ideas, and pursue your real goals without being constrained by what others might think. The fourth transformation: your relationship with other people's emotional states. Most people are unconsciously influenced by the moods and energy of those around them. They feel anxious when others are anxious, discouraged when others are discouraged, and overwhelmed when others are overwhelmed. This emotional contagion makes them vulnerable to being destabilized by other people's psychological states. But mental armor creates emotional boundaries that allow you to remain stable regardless of others' emotional turbulence. You can be empathetic and supportive without taking on their emotional burdens as your own. You can provide strength and stability to others without being dragged down by their struggles. This emotional independence doesn't mean becoming cold, disconnected, or unsympathetic. It means being able to maintain your own psychological equilibrium while genuinely caring about others' well-being. You become someone others turn to for stability during chaotic times because they know you won't add to the emotional chaos. You'll help calm it. You develop the ability to be fully present with others' pain without being overwhelmed by it. You can offer genuine support and compassion while maintaining the emotional stability needed to be truly helpful. This makes you incredibly valuable in relationships and professional contexts because you become a source of calm in the storm rather than another person adding to the chaos. The fifth transformation: your relationship with time and patience. Most people want immediate results and become frustrated when progress is slower than expected. They live in a state of constant urgency, always feeling behind schedule, always wanting things to happen faster than they naturally unfold. This impatience creates stress, leads to poor decisions, and causes them to abandon valuable long-term pursuits when they don't see quick results. But mental armor includes long-term perspective that allows you to stay committed to important goals, even when results aren't immediately visible. You understand that worthwhile achievements often require sustained effort over extended periods, and that the most valuable outcomes are usually those that take time to develop. This patient persistence allows you to work on meaningful projects without needing constant validation that you're making progress. You can invest in relationships that take time to develop. You can build skills that require years to master. You can pursue visions that won't materialize for decades. You develop what researchers call delayed gratification tolerance, the ability to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term benefits. This transformation makes you incredibly powerful because most people can't maintain effort toward goals that don't provide immediate rewards. Your willingness to play longer games and invest in compound growth gives you access to opportunities and achievements that others can't reach because they don't have the patience required. You also develop a different relationship with aging and mortality. Instead of feeling panicked about time passing or frustrated about how long things take, you see time as an ally that allows for compound development and accumulated wisdom. You understand that many of life's greatest satisfactions come from long-term projects and sustained relationships rather than quick wins and instant gratification. The sixth transformation: your relationship with responsibility and ownership. Most people try to avoid responsibility because they see it as burden, potential blame, or increased pressure. They prefer situations where others are accountable for outcomes, where they can follow directions rather than make decisions, and where they can blame external factors if things go wrong. But when you live from mental armor, you actively seek responsibility because you understand it's the pathway to influence and impact. You know that the more responsibility you can handle effectively, The more control you have over outcomes, the more valuable you become to others, and the more opportunities become available to you. This ownership mindset makes you incredibly valuable in any context because you become someone who solves problems rather than creating them, someone who takes initiative rather than waiting for direction, someone who makes things happen rather than letting things happen to them. Organizations and individuals naturally gravitate toward people who willingly take responsibility because such people are rare and incredibly useful. You develop what psychologists call internal locus of control, the belief that your actions significantly influence outcomes rather than being at the mercy of external forces. This makes you more proactive, more solution-focused, and more resilient because you believe your efforts can make a difference. This transformation also affects how you handle mistakes and setbacks. Instead of looking for others to blame or external factors to excuse poor outcomes, you focus on what you can learn and how you can improve. This makes you incredibly effective at continuous improvement because you're always extracting lessons rather than making excuses. The seventh transformation: your relationship with your own potential. Most people unconsciously limit themselves based on past experiences, current circumstances, social expectations, or other people's opinions about what's possible or realistic. They see their current capabilities as permanent limitations rather than temporary starting points. They assume their past determines their future unless dramatic external changes occur. But mental armor removes these artificial limitations and allows you to pursue goals based on what's possible rather than what's probable. You understand that your past does not determine your future unless you allow it to. You see your current circumstances as raw material for creating something better, rather than permanent constraints on what you can achieve. This expanded sense of possibility allows you to set goals that might seem unrealistic to others, but feel achievable to you, because you understand the power of systematic development, persistent effort, and continuous learning. You can pursue visions that stretch far beyond your current circumstances because you know that dramatic change is possible through sustained, intelligent action. You develop what psychologists call possible self-thinking, the ability to envision and work toward dramatically improved versions of yourself. You don't just imagine having more money or better relationships. You imagine becoming the kind of person who naturally creates financial abundance and meaningful connections. This transformation makes you incredibly inspiring to others because your example shows them what's possible when someone commits to systematic development and refuses to accept artificial limitations. You become living proof that people can change dramatically, that circumstances can be transcended, and that extraordinary results are possible for those willing to do the work. The eighth transformation: your relationship with meaning and purpose. Most people struggle with finding meaning and purpose in their lives. They feel like they're going through the motions without clear direction, working in jobs that don't fulfill them, pursuing goals that don't truly matter to them, and living according to scripts written by others rather than their own authentic vision. But living from mental armor naturally connects you with deeper meaning and purpose because you're no longer operating from fear, scarcity, or external validation. When you're not constantly worried about survival, approval, or avoiding failure, you can focus on what truly matters to you and what legacy you want to create. Mental armor gives you the courage to pursue work that aligns with your values rather than just pays the bills. It gives you the confidence to build relationships based on mutual respect and genuine connection rather than convenience or social status. It gives you the strength to stand up for causes you believe in rather than just going along with popular opinion. You develop what researchers call eudaimonic well-being, happiness that comes from living according to your authentic values and pursuing meaningful goals rather than just experiencing positive emotions or avoiding negative ones. This creates a deep satisfaction that doesn't depend on external circumstances because it comes from alignment between your actions and your values. This transformation makes your life incredibly fulfilling because everything you do becomes part of a larger purpose rather than just random activities to fill time. You wake up each day with clear direction about what matters and why your efforts are valuable. Living from mental armor creates ripple effects. When you live from mental armor, you don't just transform your own experience. You become a force for strength in the world around you. Your example shows others what's possible when someone develops genuine psychological resilience. Your calm during storms helps others find their own stability. Your confidence during uncertainty helps others access their own courage. Children who grow up around people with mental armor develop stronger psychological foundations because they see strength modeled consistently. They learn that challenges are normal parts of life rather than threats to be feared. They observe emotional regulation in action and internalize those patterns. They witness cognitive flexibility and learn to adapt their thinking when circumstances change. Colleagues and teammates become more resilient when they work with someone who embodies mental armor. Stress and panic are contagious, but so are calm and confidence. When you remain stable during organizational crises, you help others access their own stability. When you respond to setbacks with learning orientation, rather than blame, you teach others to do the same. Friends and family members find themselves becoming stronger simply through association with your strength. They begin to see challenges through your perspective. They start adopting your mental frameworks. They become more willing to take risks and face difficulties because they've seen you do it successfully. The impact extends beyond your immediate circle through what social scientists call social modeling. People observe your behavior and responses, consciously and unconsciously, learning from your example. They see that it's possible to remain strong under pressure, to bounce back from setbacks, to maintain optimism during difficult times, and to turn challenges into opportunities for growth. Contributing to cultural change. Living from mental armor also contributes to cultural change in your environment. Every workplace, community, and social group has a psychological climate that's influenced by the mental strength of its members. When you bring mental armor to these environments, you raise the overall resilience and capability of the group. Organizations with mentally armored individuals handle crises more effectively because they have people who can think clearly under pressure, adapt quickly to changing circumstances, and maintain performance when stakes are high. Communities with mentally resilient members are more stable and supportive because they have individuals who can provide strength during collective challenges. Your very existence as someone with mental armor becomes a form of cultural activism, a living proof that psychological strength is achievable, that resilience can be developed, and that humans are capable of extraordinary mental toughness. You become evidence that challenges the cultural narratives that encourage mental weakness and promote victimhood. When society promotes emotional fragility, you model emotional strength. When culture encourages reactive thinking, you demonstrate cognitive flexibility. When popular opinion suggests that people need protection from discomfort, you prove that humans become stronger through appropriate challenge. When prevailing wisdom says that mental toughness is genetic or rare, you show that it can be systematically developed. The legacy of mental armor. The ultimate expression of living from mental armor is creating a legacy of strength that extends far beyond your personal lifetime. The psychological resilience you model gets passed down through generations. The mental frameworks you demonstrate get shared across communities. The strength you build gets multiplied through everyone you influence. This legacy aspect becomes one of the most meaningful parts of living from mental armor. You're not just building psychological strength for your own benefit. You're contributing to the elevation of human consciousness and capability. You're participating in the development of a more resilient, adaptable, and psychologically healthy human culture. Every person you help become stronger goes on to help others become stronger. Every mental framework you share gets passed along to people you'll never meet. Every example you set of psychological resilience contributes to a cultural shift toward greater mental health and human capability. When you commit to building and living from mental armor, you're making a contribution that extends far beyond your individual circumstances. You're helping create a world where psychological strength is normal rather than exceptional, where resilience is developed rather than hoped for, and where human beings routinely transcend their circumstances rather than being limited by them. This is the true power and purpose of mental armor, not just personal invincibility, but the creation of a legacy of strength that ripples out through time and space, touching lives you'll never know, solving problems you'll never see, and contributing to a stronger, more resilient human future. The choice is yours. You can remain vulnerable to the psychological attacks of modern life, reactive to circumstances beyond your control, and fragile in the face of uncertainty and challenge. Or you can build mental armor so strong that nothing can penetrate it, becoming unbreakable, not just for yourself, but for everyone whose life you touch. The ultimate freedom. Living from mental armor creates the ultimate freedom, being so strong internally that external circumstances cannot disturb your peace, so confident in your capabilities that uncertainty becomes exciting rather than threatening, so grounded in your identity that criticism cannot shake your sense of self, and so committed to growth that challenges become opportunities for demonstrations rather than threats to be avoided. This is freedom from the tyranny of other people's opinions, freedom from the anxiety of uncertain outcomes, freedom from the depression of temporary setbacks, and freedom from the paralysis of perfectionist thinking. It's the freedom to pursue your authentic goals without being limited by fear, to express your genuine opinions without being constrained by social pressure, and to take meaningful risks without being paralyzed by potential failure. When you achieve this level of mental armor, you discover that most of the things that used to control your life simply don't have power over you anymore. You can face any challenge with confidence because you know you have the tools to handle it. You can pursue any goal with determination because you're not dependent on specific outcomes for your sense of worth. You can weather any storm with stability because your foundation is unshakable. This is the life that mental armor makes possible, a life of authentic power, genuine confidence, and unshakable peace that comes not from having everything go your way, but from knowing that you can handle whatever comes your way with strength, wisdom, and grace. Chapter 12. The Mental Armor Legacy. Mental armor is not just a personal development tool or an individual achievement. It's a legacy you leave for everyone whose life you touch. When you develop unbreakable mental strength, you don't just transform your own experience. You become a model and catalyst for transformation in others. Your mental armor becomes a gift that keeps giving long after you've built it, creating ripple effects that extend far beyond your personal circumstances and individual lifetime. The ripple effects of mental armor extend in ways you might never fully realize or comprehend. Every interaction you have while operating from mental strength influences others to be stronger. Every challenge you handle with grace and resilience shows others what's possible when someone has developed genuine psychological toughness. Every time you remain calm under pressure, you give others permission to access their own inner strength. Every demonstration of mental armor becomes a teaching moment that helps others understand what psychological resilience looks like in action. This influence happens whether you're conscious of it or not. People observe your responses to difficult situations and unconsciously learn from your example. They see how you handle criticism without being devastated, how you face setbacks without giving up, how you navigate uncertainty without being paralyzed by anxiety, and how you maintain your principles despite social pressure. These observations plant seeds that can grow into their own mental strength development. The immediate circle impact. Children who grow up around mentally armored adults develop stronger psychological foundations because they see strength modeled consistently rather than weakness reinforced repeatedly. They learn through observation that challenges are normal parts of life, rather than threats to be feared or avoided. They witness emotional regulation in action and internalize those patterns as natural responses to stress, rather than learning that emotional reactivity is normal or acceptable. They observe cognitive flexibility when plans change and learn that adaptation is possible, rather than that change is inherently threatening. They see stress being used as fuel for enhanced performance, rather than as an excuse for poor performance. They watch identity armor in action and learn that self-worth comes from internal sources, rather than external validation. Most importantly, they learn that humans are capable of developing extraordinary psychological strength, rather than believing that mental toughness is genetic, rare, or unattainable. This gives them fundamentally different expectations about what's possible for them and dramatically increases the likelihood that they'll develop their own mental armor. Colleagues and teammates become more resilient when they work with someone who embodies mental armor. Emotional states are contagious. Stress and panic spread rapidly through groups, but so do calm and confidence. When you remain stable during organizational crises, you help others access their own stability rather than adding to the collective anxiety. When you respond to setbacks with learning orientation rather than blame and complaining, you teach others to extract value from difficult experiences. When you demonstrate cognitive flexibility during changing circumstances, you show others that adaptation is possible rather than that change is inherently bad. When you use pressure situations as opportunities to demonstrate excellence rather than as excuses for poor performance, you raise the standards for everyone around you. Spouses and partners develop greater relationship resilience when they're with someone who has mental armor. Instead of escalating conflicts through emotional reactivity, you model emotional regulation that allows for productive problem solving. Instead of catastrophizing about relationship challenges, you demonstrate cognitive flexibility that finds solutions rather than dwelling on problems. Instead of allowing external stresses to damage your relationship, you show how mental armor protects what matters most. Friends and family members find themselves becoming stronger. Simply through association with your strength, they begin to see challenges through your perspective rather than through their habitual fear-based lens. They start adopting your mental frameworks and reframing techniques. They become more willing to take risks and face difficulties because they've seen you do it successfully and witnessed that survival is not only possible, but growth is probable. The extended network influence. The impact extends beyond your immediate circle through what social scientists call social modeling and behavioral contagion. People observe your behavior and responses, consciously and unconsciously, learning from your example even when they're not directly in relationship with you. They see that it's possible to remain strong under pressure, to bounce back from setbacks, to maintain optimism during difficult times, and to turn challenges into opportunities for growth. Professional networks spread mental armor principles when you consistently demonstrate psychological resilience in work contexts. Vendors, clients, customers, and industry contacts all observe how you handle business challenges, navigate market uncertainties, respond to competitive pressures, and maintain excellence despite obstacles. Your example shows them that different responses are possible and plants seeds for their own development. Social networks amplify mental armor influence through casual interactions and shared experiences. How you respond when restaurant service is poor. How you handle traffic delays. How you deal with technology failures. How you navigate social disagreements. All of these moments become opportunities to model mental strength for others who might never see your responses to major challenges. Community involvement multiplies your mental armor influence through volunteer work, neighborhood interactions, social cause participation, and civic engagement. When you bring psychological resilience to community challenges, you help groups solve problems more effectively while showing individuals that personal strength can contribute to collective solutions. Even strangers benefit from brief interactions with someone who has mental armor. the person who serves you coffee and sees you respond graciously to a mistake, the customer service representative who deals with you during a frustrating situation and experiences your calm professionalism, the fellow commuter who witnesses your patient response to travel delays. These micro-interactions contribute to a culture of strength rather than weakness. The generational legacy. Building mental armor contributes to generational change that extends far beyond your personal lifetime. The strength you model gets passed down through families. The mental frameworks you demonstrate get shared across communities, and the psychological resilience you develop gets multiplied through everyone you influence directly or indirectly. Children who witness mental armor don't just benefit themselves, they become more likely to model that strength for their own children. Mental frameworks that promote resilience rather than fragility get passed down through generations, creating compound effects that extend for decades beyond your direct influence. The people you mentor in mental armor development go on to mentor others, creating expanding circles of psychological strength that reach people you'll never meet, but whose lives are improved by principles and techniques that originated with your commitment to building unbreakable mental strength. Professional relationships create career-long impacts when mental armor principles get integrated into organizational cultures, leadership development programs, team management approaches, and industry best practices. Your example of psychological resilience under professional pressure can influence how entire organizations approach challenges and develop their people. Contributing to cultural evolution. Living from mental armor also contributes to cultural change in your environment and society at large. Every workplace, community, and social group has a psychological climate that's influenced by the mental strength of its members. When you bring mental armor to these environments, you raise the overall resilience and capability of the group while challenging cultural narratives that promote weakness. Organizations with mentally armored individuals handle crises more effectively because they have people who can think clearly under pressure, adapt quickly to changing circumstances, maintain performance when stakes are high, and help others access their own capabilities during challenging times. These organizations become more successful, which creates positive feedback loops that reinforce the value of mental strength. Communities with mentally resilient members are more stable and supportive because they have individuals who can provide strength during collective challenges rather than adding to collective panic. These communities become more attractive places to live and work, which draws other strong people and creates virtuous cycles of increasing resilience. Your very existence as someone with mental armor becomes a form of cultural activism, living proof that psychological strength is achievable, that resilience can be developed, and that humans are capable of extraordinary mental toughness. You become evidence that challenges the cultural narratives that encourage mental weakness and promote victimhood. When society promotes emotional fragility and safe spaces, you model emotional strength and challenge-seeking. When culture encourages reactive thinking and binary perspectives, you demonstrate cognitive flexibility and nuanced analysis. When popular opinion suggests that people need protection from discomfort and trigger warnings, you prove that humans become stronger through appropriate challenge and exposure. When prevailing wisdom says that mental toughness is genetic, rare, or only available to special people, you show that it can be systematically developed by anyone willing to do the work. Your example becomes part of a larger cultural shift toward recognizing human potential rather than human limitation. The ripple effect through teaching and mentoring. The legacy aspect becomes most apparent when you begin actively teaching and mentoring others in developing their own mental armor. When you share the techniques and perspectives that have made you strong, you multiply your impact exponentially while contributing to a more resilient human culture. This teaching doesn't require formal instruction, official mentoring relationships, or structured programs. Every conversation where you share a resilient perspective, every moment when you model emotional regulation, Every time you demonstrate cognitive flexibility becomes a teaching moment that helps others understand what mental armor looks like in practice. Every story you tell about overcoming challenges through mental armor gives others frameworks they can apply to their own situations. Every technique you share for building psychological resilience provides tools others can use to develop their own strength. Every principle you explain for maintaining stability under pressure helps others understand that such stability is achievable. The people you directly influence go on to influence others, who influence others, creating expanding circles of resilience and strength that reach far beyond your immediate network. A single individual with unbreakable mental armor can eventually impact thousands or even millions of people through this ripple effect of influence and teaching. Consider the long-term implications of developing mental armor for humanity's collective challenges. Every major problem facing our species, from climate change to social inequality to technological disruption to global health crises, requires individuals who can think clearly under pressure, adapt to changing circumstances, maintain hope and effectiveness despite uncertainty, and lead others through difficult transitions. The world desperately needs people who won't break under the pressure of complex challenges, who can maintain emotional equilibrium while dealing with serious problems, who can think flexibly when traditional approaches aren't working, who can persist through long-term difficulties, and who can inspire others to contribute to solutions rather than adding to problems. Mental armor is not just personal development. It's preparation for the leadership our world desperately needs. When you develop unbreakable psychological strength, you're preparing yourself to contribute to solving humanity's biggest challenges while helping others develop the mental tools they need to participate in creating positive change. The ultimate legacy: human evolution. The ultimate legacy of mental armor is contributing to the evolution of human consciousness and capability. As more individuals develop unbreakable mental strength, we collectively become more capable of handling the challenges of existence, pursuing ambitious goals, solving complex problems, and creating positive change despite obstacles and uncertainty. This evolutionary contribution is perhaps the most meaningful aspect of developing mental armor. You're not just improving your own life or even just helping the people around you. You're participating in the advancement of human capability and resilience. You're helping our species become stronger, more adaptable, and more capable of thriving in an uncertain and challenging universe. Every person who develops mental armor contributes to humanity's collective psychological strength. Every individual who learns to remain calm under pressure adds to our species' ability to handle crises effectively. Every person who develops cognitive flexibility contributes to our collective ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Every individual who builds identity armor adds to humanity's resilience against manipulation and control. When you commit to building mental armor, you're making a commitment that extends far beyond yourself and your immediate circumstances. You're choosing to become a force for strength in a world that needs more strength. You're deciding to model resilience for others who need to see what's possible. You're accepting responsibility for contributing to the psychological evolution of humanity. This evolutionary perspective makes the challenges and sacrifices required for building mental armor feel meaningful and worthwhile. The daily practices, the stress inoculation exercises, the comfort zone expansion, the vulnerability challenges, all of these become contributions to something much larger than personal improvement. You're not just building mental armor for your own benefit. You're developing psychological strength that will serve your family, your community, your profession, and humanity as a whole. You're creating a legacy of resilience that will continue to make the world stronger long after you're gone. The responsibility and opportunity. This understanding of mental armor as legacy creates both responsibility and opportunity. Once you've developed unbreakable mental strength, You have an obligation to use it not just for your own benefit, but for the elevation of others. You become a guardian of resilience in a world that often promotes fragility. This responsibility extends to challenging cultural narratives that encourage mental weakness. When society promotes victimhood and learned helplessness, you model ownership and personal responsibility. When culture encourages emotional reactivity and triggered responses, you demonstrate regulation and thoughtful response. When popular opinion suggests that humans are fragile and need constant protection, you prove that humans are anti-fragile and grow stronger through appropriate challenge. But this responsibility is also an incredible opportunity. You get to be part of the solution to humanity's psychological challenges. You get to contribute to creating a stronger, more resilient human culture. You get to help others discover their own capacity for mental strength while building something that will last far beyond your individual lifetime. The legacy of mental armor is ultimately about love. Love for humanity, love for future generations, love for human potential, and love for what we can become when we commit to developing our psychological capabilities. It's about caring enough about others to become strong yourself, caring enough about the future to model what's possible in the present, and caring enough about human flourishing to do the work required for building unbreakable mental strength. When you build mental armor, you're not just protecting yourself from life's challenges. You're becoming someone who can protect others, who can model strength when strength is needed, who can provide stability when everything else is uncertain, and who can show others what humans are capable of achieving when they commit to psychological development. This is the true power and purpose of mental armor, not just personal invincibility, but the creation of a legacy of strength that makes the world better for everyone. It's about becoming someone whose life makes other lives stronger, whose example makes other people believe in their own potential, and whose strength contributes to the strength of all humanity. The choice is yours, and it's more important than you might realize. The world is watching. Future generations are counting on you, and humanity's psychological evolution depends on individuals like you who are willing to do the hard work of building genuine mental strength. Build your mental armor. Become unbreakable. Leave a legacy of strength that makes the world better for everyone who comes after you. Your mind is your fortress. Your thoughts are your weapons. Your resilience is your victory. Your legacy is your gift to humanity. The battle for mental strength starts now. And with the right armor, you cannot lose. The future needs your strength. The world is waiting for your example. The next generation is counting on your courage. Will you answer the call?